I'm 74. My husband just went into the ground. I stood there alone. My son texted,
I'm 74. My husband just went into the ground. I stood there, alone. My son texted, can't skip the meeting. My daughter laughed, I'll drop by next week. The night before, they messaged each other. No drama. Dad's been dead in his head for 5 years. Dare you listen when the children you gave life to kill their mother before the father? Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. Only I stood at my husband's funeral. Not our son Marcus, not our daughter Jessica, not a single one of our 5 grandchildren. Just me, Margaret Sullivan, 74 years old, standing alone beside Robert's casket while the October rain hammered against the windows of Cedar Lawn Memorial Chapel in North Seattle. The funeral director, a young man named Travis with kind eyes, kept glancing between the rows of empty folding chairs in my face, his discomfort growing with each passing minute. He cleared his throat once, then twice. Mrs. Sullivan, would you like us to wait a little longer? Maybe they're caught in traffic? No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Start the service. Robert always hated being late for anything. Even now, he wouldn't want to wait. Robert James Sullivan, my husband of 52 years. The man who held my hand through 2 difficult pregnancies, who planted red maple trees in our front yard the day we moved into our Wallingford Craftsman house in 1973, who taught our children to ride bikes and tie their shoes and say please and thank you. The Marine Corps veteran who survived Vietnam but couldn't survive Alzheimer's disease. The man who, in his final lucid moment 3 weeks ago at Providence Elder Place, squeezed my hand and whispered, Maggie, make sure the kids come say goodbye. They never came. I sat down in the front row, all 11 chairs beside me empty. The minister, Reverend Patricia Moore from our old church, read from Psalm 23 without her usual conviction. The flowers were too bright, offensive in their cheerfulness. Robert's casket was draped with an American flag, honoring his service. A framed photograph sat on an easel beside it. Robert in his Marine Corps dress blues, 1969, those clear blue eyes staring at a future he thought would include dignity in death. I couldn't stop thinking about where they were. Where the hell were my children? The message had come that morning while I was putting on my black dress, the same one I'd worn to my mother's funeral 12 years ago, still fitting but looser now because grief has a way of stealing your appetite. Marcus had sent a text message at 6:47 a.m. Mom, I'm so sorry. Emergency presentation at Amazon today. Senior VP is flying in. Can't reschedule. I'll make it up to you. No phone call, no flowers. Just 23 words that said his career at a tech company mattered more than his father's final goodbye. Jessica hadn't even bothered with a message. She'd left a voicemail 2 days earlier, breezy and light, as if discussing weekend brunch plans. Hey Mom, so I've got this super important mediation session with my divorce lawyer. Brad says if I miss it, Chad's attorney will use it against me in court. You know how nasty this divorce is getting. Tell Dad I'll visit him next week, okay? Love you. Next week. As if dead men keep appointments. As if you could reschedule death like a hair salon visit. After the service, 23 minutes start to finish, the shortest funeral Reverend Moore said she'd ever conducted, I walked alone behind the pallbearers. 6 strangers from the funeral home carried my husband's body because none of his family showed up to do it. The only people who witnessed Robert James Sullivan's burial were me, the Reverend, 2 cemetery workers named Miguel and James, and a homeless man taking shelter under a nearby oak tree. The cemetery was gray and cold. Dead leaves swirled around the gravesite. The pallbearers lowered Robert's casket into the earth with mechanical efficiency, and I stood there watching the man I'd loved for over half a century disappear into the ground. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't drowning in grief. God knows I'd been grieving for 5 years as Alzheimer's slowly erased the man I married. but because there's a kind of sorrow so deep and so complete that tears feel inadequate, cheap, like trying to bail out the ocean with a teaspoon. The minister said final prayers. Dirt hit wood. I placed a single white carnation on the casket, Robert's favorite flower, because they lasted longer than roses, he always said. Practical even in romance. I stood there long after everyone else had left, until Miguel approached gently and said, "Ma'am, we need to close up now. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. I drove home alone in our 1998 Honda Accord, the car Robert had maintained meticulously for 27 years, oil changes every 3,000 miles without fail. The house felt like a mausoleum. His reading glasses still sat on the end table. His slippers were arranged side by side near his recliner, exactly where he'd left them the day the ambulance took him to the hospital for the last time. The TV remote was still set to the History Channel. I walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet where we kept the special occasion wine, a bottle of Washington Merlot from Chateau Sweet Michel that we'd been saving for our 50th wedding anniversary. We'd celebrated that milestone 2 years ago, but Robert's Alzheimer's was already so advanced he didn't remember the occasion 5 minutes after we toasted. So the wine had stayed unopened, waiting for a moment that never came. I poured myself a glass, then another. And then I did something I rarely did. I opened my phone and looked at social media. I'm not technologically savvy. Marcus had set up my Facebook account 3 years ago, mostly so I could see photos of my grandchildren. I scrolled through my feed with shaking hands, and there it was. Posted 2 hours ago, right around the time Robert's casket was being lowered into the ground. Marcus had posted a photo from Amazon's Seattle campus. He was holding a trophy-shaped award, surrounded by his team, everyone smiling and giving thumbs up. The caption read, "Huge win today, Best Quarterly Presentation Award. Couldn't have done it without this amazing team. Here's to innovation and crushing our fourth quarter goals. #TechLife, #Amazon Family." 347 people had liked it. 62 comments congratulating him. I scrolled down. Jessica's Instagram was public. She'd insisted on that because her wellness brand required authentic engagement with followers. Her most recent post, uploaded 1 hour ago, a selfie at her divorce lawyer's office, perfectly applied makeup, holding a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, caption reading, "Tough day, but I'm choosing ME. Self-care isn't selfish. It's survival. Thank you all for your support during my journey. #divorce recovery, #stronger every day, #blessed. 412 likes, comments filled with heart emojis and "You go girl," and "so proud of you." I stared at my phone screen until the images blurred. Then something caught my eye, a notification that Jessica had mentioned me in a story. My hands trembled as I clicked it. It was a screenshot of a group text message. My heart stopped when I realized what I was looking at. Jessica had accidentally posted it publicly instead of sending it privately, and though she deleted it within minutes, I'd caught it. The conversation was between Marcus and Jessica, sent the night before Robert's funeral. "Marcus, is Mom seriously expecting us to drop everything for Dad's funeral? He's been gone mentally for 5 years. This feels like guilt trip theater." Jessica, "Right? I've got real problems. My divorce lawyer costs $500 in HOR. Brad says if I miss tomorrow's mediation, I could lose everything." Marcus, "My presentation is career-defining. Davis, the SVP, specifically asked to see my work. I literally can't say no." Jessica, "Dad wouldn't even know if we were there. Honestly, Mom's being dramatic." Marcus, "Agreed. We'll make it up to her later. Send flowers or something." I read it 3 times, each word a knife sliding between my ribs. Then I took a screenshot before Jessica could realize her mistake. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The wine glass slipped from my fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor, the same kitchen floor where Robert and I had danced on our 25th anniversary, where we'd taught Marcus and Jessica to bake cookies, where we'd shared thousands of meals and millions of words and a lifetime of ordinary, beautiful moments. I stood there among the broken glass and spilled wine, and for the first time in my 74 years, I felt something sharper than grief. I felt rage, pure, clarifying rage. I cleaned up the glass carefully, methodically. Then I walked to Robert's old desk in our bedroom, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the folder labeled Estate Planning, Sullivan Family 2021. Inside were our wills, beneficiary designations, asset lists. Everything organized just the way Robert had insisted, color-coded, cross-referenced, updated annually. Marcus was listed as co-beneficiary on our main retirement account, $395,000 accumulated over 40 years of careful saving. Jessica and Marcus were both named in the house transfer clause, our Wallingford craftsman, now worth $920,000. The cabin near Mount Rainier, the place where we'd taken the kids skiing every winter until they decided they were too busy, $280,000 earmarked for them. I held those pages in my hands and felt my entire body begin to shake. Not from age. From betrayal. I walked to the closet and pulled down the old storage boxes from the top shelf. Inside were photo albums spanning 5 decades. Marcus as a baby, sleeping on Robert's chest. Jessica at 4 years old, holding my hand at Pike Place Market, family camping trips to Olympic National Park, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, graduations. When had we stopped being a family? When had love become nothing more than an inheritance they were waiting to collect? I picked up one particular photo, Marcus at 12, Robert teaching him to throw a baseball at Magnuson Park, Robert's arm around his son's shoulders, both of them laughing. That man, the one in the photo, the one I'd buried today, had deserved better than an empty funeral home. I put the photo down. Then I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and found the name I was looking for, Elizabeth Wong, our estate attorney. It was 11:37 p.m., but I didn't care. I called and left a message, my voice cold and clear. Elizabeth, this is Margaret Sullivan. I need to revise my will immediately. It's urgent. Call me first thing tomorrow morning. I hung up and sat in the darkness of our bedroom. Through the window, I could see the red maple trees Robert had planted in 1973, now bare branches scratching at the October sky. Everything he'd built, everything we'd built together, and our children couldn't give him 2 hours to say goodbye. Tomorrow, I thought, I would begin cutting them out of my life as cleanly and completely as they'd cut themselves out of his death. Tomorrow, I would choose differently. Tomorrow, justice would begin. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that screenshot, those cold, calculated words from my own children discussing their father's funeral like it was an inconvenient dentist appointment. Dad wouldn't even know if we were there. Jessica's words echoed in my head like a death knell. I lay in the bed I'd shared with Robert for 52 years, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle and creak. The same sounds I'd heard for decades, but tonight they felt different, lonelier. Robert's side of the bed was cold, and I kept reaching over, forgetting he was gone, my hand finding nothing but empty sheets. At 4 a.m, I gave up pretending I could sleep. I made coffee strong and black, the way Robert liked it, and sat at the kitchen table with my iPad. The blue glow illuminated the darkness as I opened Facebook again, driven by some masochistic need to understand exactly who my children had become. Marcus's profile was a shrine to corporate success, photo after photo of him at Amazon events, tech conferences, networking dinners. His bio read, Senior Product Manager at Amazon, driven, innovative, always optimizing. There were pictures of his house in Bellevue, a modern monstrosity of glass and steel, worth at least $2 million. Pictures of his wife, Vanessa, a corporate lawyer who looked at the camera like she was calculating its net worth. Pictures of his 3 children, Sophia, Oliver, and Nora, my grandchildren, whom I'd seen exactly twice in the past 2 years. I scrolled back through his timeline, posts about promotions, awards, successful product launches, motivational quotes about grinding and hustling and crushing goals, inspirational speeches about work-life balance from a man who'd just skipped his own father's funeral for a presentation. Then I found what I was looking for. Posts from the day Robert went into Providence Elder Place, 15 months ago. Nothing. Not a single mention. I scrolled further. The day we'd celebrated Robert's 76th birthday at the nursing home, just me and 2 nurses singing happy birthday to a man who no longer recognized his own name. Marcus had posted that same day a picture of himself at a Mariners game with clients, caption, "Networking done right. Let's go M's." My hands clenched around the iPad so hard I thought the screen might crack. I switched to Jessica's Instagram. Her feed was even worse, a carefully curated fantasy of a woman who didn't exist. Every post was filtered, posed, calculated for maximum engagement. Her bio, wellness warrior, divorced and thriving, living my authentic truth, she divided by her. DM for collaborations. I scrolled through months of content. Yoga poses at expensive studios, green smoothies in mason jars, motivational quotes over sunset backgrounds, self-care Sunday posts featuring bubble baths and scented candles worth more than I spent on groceries in a month. Sponsored content for skincare products, athleisure wear, detox teas that probably did nothing but empty wallets. Then I found the posts from yesterday, the day we buried her father. The first was from 9 in the morning, posted while I was getting dressed for the funeral, a mirror selfie in her lawyer's office building bathroom. She was wearing a cream-colored designer pantsuit, her blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. Caption, ready to fight for what's mine. Divorce is hard, but I'm harder. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Fill yourself first. #divorce warrior, #self-love journey, #choose you. 632 likes in 12 hours. The second post came at 1 in the afternoon, exactly when Robert's casket was being lowered into the ground, a photo of her lunch at some trendy Capitol Hill restaurant. Avocado toast with edible flowers, a matcha latte with foam art, everything artfully arranged. Caption, fueling my body with intention after a tough morning. My therapist says I need to celebrate small victories. This is me celebrating choosing ME. #nourish, #mindful eating, #healing journey. 497 likes, comments filled with praise. You're glowing. So proud of you. Keep shining, queen. I felt bile rise in my throat. My daughter, the girl I'd carried for 9 months, labored for 14 hours to bring into this world, nursed through colic and childhood illnesses, and teenage heartbreaks, was posting about avocado toast while her father was being buried. But it got worse. I found her Instagram stories, the ones that disappeared after 24 hours but were still visible now. The first one, posted at 10:45 a.m., a video of her in her car, talking directly to the camera. Good morning, loves. Just wanted to check in. Today is emotionally heavy, dealing with some family stuff, but I'm choosing to show up for myself. Remember, you don't owe anyone your energy, not even family. Protect your peace. Heart emoji. Sparkle emoji. The next story, posted at 2:30 p.m., a boomerang video of her clinking champagne glasses with her divorce lawyer, Brad Morrison, a man in his 40s with 2 white teeth, and a Rolex that caught the light. Caption, when your lawyer becomes your therapist and your cheerleader, blessed with the best team. #legal dream team. I watched that video loop 7 times. Champagne. She was drinking champagne while I was standing alone at her father's grave. My chest felt tight. My left arm tingled. I recognized the signs. I'd been a registered nurse for 40 years at Harborview Medical Center. I was having a panic attack, or worse, the beginning of a cardiac event. I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 7. Out through the mouth for 8. The technique I'd taught hundreds of patients over the decades. Slowly, my heart rate decreased, the tingling faded. But the rage didn't. I kept scrolling, driven by some awful need to see the complete picture of who my children had become. I found Jessica's Facebook page and discovered she'd joined a group called Thriving Through Divorce, Women Warriors. She'd posted in the group yesterday evening, "You guys, I just survived the most emotionally manipulative day. My mom tried to guilt trip me about missing a family thing because of my mediation. But my lawyer reminded me, I have to put my needs first. Anyone else dealing with toxic family dynamics during divorce?" 43 comments of support. "Stay strong, hun. Family doesn't get to demand your emotional labor. You're doing amazing." Toxic family dynamics. She'd called our family toxic because I'd asked her to attend her father's funeral. I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had nothing to do with my heart and everything to do with my soul. I opened my email, searching for any communication from my children over the past 6 months. Marcus had sent me 3 emails, one asking if I could watch his kids for a weekend while he and Vanessa went to Napa Valley. I'd said yes, canceling a doctor's appointment I'd waited 3 months for. One asking for the contact information for our accountant because we're doing some complex tax planning. And one, sent 4 weeks ago, asking if Robert and I had properly organized our estate documents because it's important for everyone to be clear on expectations. Expectations. He wanted to know what he'd inherit. Jessica's emails were even more transactional. 7 messages over 6 months, all of them requests. Could I loan her $5,000 for lawyer fees? Could I store some of her furniture in our garage during her move? Could I write a character reference letter for her custody hearing? Did I know anyone who wanted to buy her old Peloton bike? Not once, not in a single email, text message, or phone call had either of them asked, "Mom, how are you doing? How are you handling Dad's Alzheimer's? Do you need help? What can we do for you?" The coffee had gone cold in my cup. Outside, Seattle was waking up. I could hear the early morning buses rumbling past, the neighbor's dog barking, the recycling truck making its rounds. Normal sounds of a normal Tuesday. Except nothing would ever be normal again. I picked up my phone and opened my text messages. The last exchange with Marcus was from 3 weeks ago. "Me, Marcus, your father is asking for you. He had a good morning, he remembered your name. Please come visit if you can." Marcus, "Swamped at work this week, Mom. Maybe next weekend." There was no next weekend. Robert died 4 days later. The last text exchange with Jessica was even worse. "Me, Jessica, the doctor says your father only has a few weeks left. Please come say goodbye." Jessica, "Mom, I really can't deal with death stuff right now. I'm going through the hardest time of my life. Can't you understand that?" "Me, your father is dying." Jessica, "And I'm dying inside from this divorce. Why does everyone always expect me to drop everything? I have real problems." I hadn't responded. What could I possibly say to that? Now, sitting in my dark kitchen at 5 in the morning, I typed out a new message to both of them in a group chat. "Your father was buried yesterday, alone except for me. Thank you both for showing me exactly who you are." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it. No, they didn't deserve even that much acknowledgement. Silence would be my first act of rebellion. Instead, I opened my photo albums and started looking through pictures. I needed to remember who they used to be before I could fully accept who they'd become. Marcus at 6 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish he'd caught with Robert at Lake Washington. Jessica at 8, dressed as Dorothy for Halloween, holding my hand while Robert carried her basket of candy. Marcus's high school graduation, Robert's arm around his shoulders, both of them beaming with pride. Jessica's wedding day, me pinning her veil, her saying, "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Mom." When did the shift happen? When did we become nothing more than an ATM and free childcare? When did their father become so irrelevant they couldn't spare 2 hours to honor his life? I closed the photo albums. My heart hurt worse than any physical pain I'd ever experienced, worse than childbirth, worse than the broken ribs from my car accident in 2012, worse than anything. The sun was starting to rise, painting the Seattle sky in shades of gray and pink. Robert's maple trees were silhouetted against the light, bare branches reaching upward like prayers. I stood up, my joints stiff from sitting too long, and walked to Robert's desk. I pulled out the folder labeled Financial Assistance to Children, 2000 to 2024. I'd kept meticulous records. It was the nurse in me, always documenting everything. I opened the folder and began to read, really read, what Robert and I had given our children over the past 24 years. Each entry written in my careful handwriting, each one a monument to love they never appreciated. Marcus Sullivan, total financial support. 2003, $45,000 MBA tuition at University of Washington. He'd promised to pay us back, never did. 2008, $60,000. Down payment for his townhouse in Bellevue. "Just a loan, Mom, I'll repay you when I get my bonus." The bonus came. The repayment didn't. 2012, $25,000. Startup investment for some app he was developing with colleagues. The company folded after 8 months. He never mentioned it again. 2015, $18,000, Tesla Model S. "It's a business expense, Mom. Clients expect you to look successful." He'd asked for a small loan. 18,000 is not small. 2017, $32,000. Private school tuition for Sophia when she didn't get into the public gifted program. "She needs the best education, Mom. You understand." 2019, $30,000 medical bills after Oliver's birth. Marcus's insurance somehow didn't cover everything. We paid without question. 2022, $40,000. Bridge loan for a real estate investment. I'll pay you back in 6 months. I promise. That was 3 years ago. Marcus total. $250,000. Jessica Sullivan Thompson, total financial support. 2005. $55,000, wedding at the Four Seasons Seattle. I want one perfect day, Mom, please. It's all I'll ever ask for. It wasn't. 2007. $38,000. SUV after her car was repossessed. She'd stopped making payments because money was tight. But her Instagram showed regular spa visits. 2010, $35,000, the startup costs for her nail salon in Capitol Hill. This is my dream, Mom. I'll make you so proud. The salon closed after 22 months. 2014, $22,000 bankruptcy lawyer fees after the salon failed and creditors came calling. Robert had been against it. I'd convinced him. 2017, $28,000, Mercedes Geli SUV. I need reliable transportation for the kids, Mom. The kids spent weekends with Chad. The car was for her. 2020, $45,000 plastic surgery, rhinoplasty and breast augmentation. I need this for my mental health, Mom. My therapist agrees. I'd liquidated part of my retirement account. 2023, $50,000 divorce lawyer retainer. Brad is the best in Seattle, but he's expensive. Just this one last thing, Mom. I swear. It wasn't the last thing. It never was. Jessica total, $273,000. Combined total, $523,000. Over $500,000, given freely, lovingly, without hesitation. Money Robert and I had saved by driving old cars, taking modest vacations, shopping at Costco, clipping coupons, working overtime shifts. Money we'd put aside for retirement, for emergencies, for security in our old age. And they couldn't come to his funeral. My hands started shaking again. I felt dizzy, lightheaded. The kitchen tilted sideways. I grabbed the counter to steady myself, but my knees buckled. I sank to the floor, gasping for air, the folder spilling its contents across the linoleum, 24 years of receipts and canceled checks and bank statements, a paper trail of unconditional love that had led nowhere. I don't know how long I sat there on the cold kitchen floor, long enough for the sun to fully rise, long enough for my phone to buzz with a text message. It was from Ethan Marcus's middle child, my grandson, 19 years old, a sophomore at Seattle University. Ethan, Grandma, I just found out about Grandpa. Why didn't anyone tell me? I would have been there. I'm so sorry. Can I come see you today? I stared at that message, tears finally coming hot and fast and unstoppable. At least one person in this family still had a heart. I typed back with trembling fingers, "Yes, sweetheart, please come." Then I picked myself up off the floor, gathered the scattered papers, and made a decision that would change everything. Today, I would call Elizabeth Wong. Today, I would rewrite my will. Today, I would choose who deserved my legacy, and it wouldn't be the people who just taught me the cruelest lesson of my 74 years. That you can give someone everything and still mean nothing to them at all. Elizabeth Wong called me back at 8:45 that morning. I was still sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of my children's betrayal, my cold coffee untouched, my eyes burning from lack of sleep and too many tears. "Margaret, I got your message. I'm so sorry about Robert. I wanted to attend the funeral, but I was in court yesterday. Are you all right?" Was I all right? What a question. My husband was dead. My children had abandoned him in death as thoroughly as they'd abandoned him in his final years of life. I'd just discovered I'd given them over $500,000 while they couldn't spare 2 hours to say goodbye to their father. "No, Elizabeth, I'm not all right, but I will be. I need to see you today, this morning if possible." There was a pause. Elizabeth had been our estate attorney for 15 years. She'd seen us through Robert's Alzheimer's diagnosis, helped us update our healthcare directives, organized our financial documents with military precision. She knew our family. She knew my children. "I can clear my 10 o'clock appointment. Can you come to my office?" "I'll be there." I hung up and looked around the kitchen. This room had been the heart of our home for 51 years. Robert and I had remodeled it in 1998, installing the oak cabinets he'd helped build, the farmhouse sink I'd always wanted, the bay window that looked out onto our small backyard where the maple trees grew. We'd made thousands of meals here, celebrated hundreds of birthdays and holidays. This was where Jessica had announced her first pregnancy, where Marcus had told us he'd gotten the Amazon job, where we'd laughed and argued and lived a full, rich life. Now it felt like a crime scene. The evidence of my children's cruelty was spread across the table bank statements, canceled checks, thank you notes they'd written years ago that now felt like elaborate lies. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad, we love you. We couldn't do this without you. But they could do without us. They'd proven that yesterday. I forced myself to shower and dress. My hands shook as I buttoned my blouse, the same navy blue one I'd worn to parent-teacher conferences and nursing shift changes and 1,000 ordinary days. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. When had I gotten so old? When had the lines around my eyes become so deep? When had my hair turned completely silver? Robert used to say I was beautiful. Even at the end, when he couldn't remember my name, he'd sometimes look at me and smile, and I knew somewhere in the fog of his broken mind, he still loved me. Who would look at me like that now? I gathered the financial documents into a manila folder, added the screenshot of Marcus and Jessica's text messages, and drove to Elizabeth's office in downtown Seattle. The morning traffic was heavy tech workers in their 20s and 30s, all rushing to jobs at Amazon and Microsoft and Google, probably thinking about stock options and career advancement and quarterly reviews. Did any of them call their parents? Did any of them visit their aging fathers? Elizabeth's office was in a historic building near Pike Place Market. I'd always loved coming here, the old-world charm of it, the way the hardwood floors creaked, the view of Elliott Bay from her window. Today, I barely noticed any of it. Elizabeth stood when I entered. She was in her mid-50s, Korean-American, sharp as a blade and twice as effective. She wore a black pantsuit and her usual expression of calm competence, but her eyes softened when she saw me. "Margaret, sit down. Can I get you coffee? Water?" "Nothing. Thank you." I sat in the leather chair across from her desk and placed my folder down. "I need to revise my will. Completely. Today, if possible." Elizabeth sat down slowly. "That's a significant decision to make so soon after Robert's death. Are you sure you don't want to wait a few weeks, give yourself time to grieve? I've been grieving for 5 years while Alzheimer's stole my husband piece by piece. Yesterday, I buried what was left of him. Alone. My children didn't come to their father's funeral, Elizabeth." Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Surprise? Anger on my behalf? Neither of them? Neither of them. I opened the folder and slid the screenshot across her desk. This is what they were saying the night before. Jessica posted it by accident on Instagram. She deleted it, but I captured it first. Elizabeth picked up the paper and read it. Her jaw tightened. She read it again, and I watched her professional mask slip for just a moment, revealing genuine disgust. "My God, Margaret." "There's more." I showed her the financial records. All of it. Every check, every transfer, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. 24 years of giving to children who saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Elizabeth went through the documents methodically, making notes on her legal pad. When she finished, she looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw something close to rage on her carefully controlled face. $523,000. Plus interest if we calculated it. Plus the 1,000 hours I spent babysitting their children while they went on vacations I could never afford because I'd given them my vacation money. Plus the dinners I cooked, the laundry I did, the emotional labor I performed for decades. Elizabeth nodded slowly. "What do you want to do?" "I want to remove Marcus and Jessica from my will entirely. From everything. The house, the cabin, the retirement accounts, the life insurance, all of it. I want to create an irrevocable trust for my grandson, Ethan. He's the only one who's shown me an ounce of human decency. An irrevocable trust means you can't change your mind later, even if Marcus and Jessica apologize or—" "They won't apologize," I interrupted, "and even if they did, I wouldn't care. I'm done, Elizabeth. I'm 74 years old. I don't have time left to waste on people who don't value me." Elizabeth picked up her pen. "Then let's do this properly. Tell me exactly what you want." We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Every asset, every account, every possession of value. The Wallingford house, purchased in 1973 for $48,000, now worth $920,000. The Mount Rainier cabin, bought in 1986 for $75,000, now valued at $280,000. Robert's Boeing pension and my nursing pension, combined with our retirement savings, $395,000 in various accounts. His life insurance policy, $150,000. My own life insurance, another $100,000. Total estate value, approximately $1,945,000. Nearly $2 million that Marcus and Jessica had been counting on. Nearly $2 million they'd just lost because they couldn't be bothered to attend their father's funeral. I want it all in an irrevocable trust for Ethan, I told Elizabeth, structured so that his parents can't access it, can't borrow against it, can't manipulate him into giving it to them. Elizabeth nodded, writing quickly. We'll set it up so Ethan receives controlled disbursements for education and medical expenses immediately, with full access at age 25. I'll include language specifically barring Marcus and Jessica from any involvement or benefit. What about contesting the will? Can they fight this? In Washington state, you have the absolute right to disinherit adult children. As long as you're of sound mind, which you clearly are, and as long as the will is properly executed, there's no legal ground for them to contest. We'll include a no contest clause stating that anyone who challenges the will forfeits any and all other bequests. And I'll have Dr. Patricia Anderson, your primary care physician, provide a written statement of your mental competency, just to eliminate any possible challenge. Do it. All of it. Elizabeth paused, her pen hovering over the legal pad. Margaret, I have to ask, are you certain? This is irreversible. If circumstances change, if Marcus and Jessica somehow redeem themselves, they won't, I said flatly. But even if they did, this is about more than punishment. This is about values. Ethan embodies the values Robert and I tried to teach our children. Kindness. Loyalty. Showing up when it matters. Marcus and Jessica learned different values somewhere along the way. They learned that money matters more than people, that career advancement matters more than family, that self-care means caring only for yourself. I leaned forward, my hands flat on Elizabeth's desk. I gave them everything, Elizabeth. Everything. And they gave Robert nothing, not even 2 hours on the last day his body would be above ground. They made their choice. Now I'm making mine. Elizabeth held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. I'll draft the documents today. You can come back tomorrow to review and sign them. I'll have my paralegal witness it, along with a notary. We'll file everything properly with the county. Within 72 hours, this will be legally binding. Thank you. There's one more thing, Elizabeth said carefully. When Marcus and Jessica find out, and they will find out eventually, they're going to be angry, possibly vindictive. You should prepare yourself for that confrontation. I thought about the screenshot, about Jessica's Instagram posts, about Marcus's awards ceremony photo posted while his father was being buried. I thought about 24 years of giving and giving and giving to people who'd taken and taken and taken without ever saying thank you, without ever asking what I needed, without ever once considering that I might be drowning too. Let them be angry, I said. I've spent my entire adult life managing other people's emotions. I'm done with that now. I left Elizabeth's office at 12:30. The Seattle sky had turned gray, threatening rain. I sat in my Honda for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just done. I'd disinherited my children, cut them off completely, chosen my grandson over my own son and daughter, and I felt no guilt, no second thoughts, only a strange, light feeling like I'd been carrying a crushing weight for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Grandma, I'm so sorry, I have a lab I can't skip until 3 p.m. Can I come see you at 4? I really need to see you. I can't stop thinking about Grandpa. I should have been there. I typed back, 4 o'clock is perfect, sweetheart. I'll make us dinner. Then came another text, this one from Marcus. Mom, we need to talk about Dad's estate. When's a good time to go over everything? We should probably meet with the lawyer together. The audacity, the absolute audacity of this man to skip his father's funeral and then immediately ask about inheritance. I stared at the message for a full minute, then I deleted it without responding. Another text appeared, this one from Jessica. Mom, I know you're probably mad about yesterday, but you have to understand I'm going through a lot right now. My therapist says I can't let other people's expectations destroy my healing journey. Can we talk about Dad's life insurance and stuff? Brad says I should be proactive about estate stuff. Brad, her divorce lawyer. She'd discussed her father's life insurance with her divorce lawyer. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest, not anger anymore, something colder than anger, something final. I deleted Jessica's message too. Then I drove to Metropolitan Market and bought ingredients for Ethan's favorite meal, the pot roast Robert used to make every Sunday, with carrots and potatoes and that rich gravy that took hours to perfect. I bought fresh bread from the bakery section. I bought the good ice cream, the expensive kind with real vanilla beans. At home, I put on Robert's old apron, the one that said "Kiss the Cook," that I'd given him as a joke 30 years ago. I chopped vegetables the way he'd taught me, humming along to the classical radio station he'd always played while cooking. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something close to peace. At 3:45, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I looked out the window and saw Ethan's old Toyota, the one he'd bought himself with money from his summer job, refusing our offer to help with a down payment because I need to do this myself, Grandma. He got out of the car carrying a bouquet of white carnations, Robert's favorite flower. He remembered. I opened the door before he could knock, and the moment I saw his face so much like Robert's at that age, those same kind eyes, I started crying again. Ethan dropped the flowers on the porch and wrapped his arms around me. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I didn't know." Dad said Grandpa was being taken care of, and I thought he meant I didn't know he died. I didn't know about the funeral. I swear I didn't know. I held my grandson and cried into his shoulder big, gasping sobs that came from somewhere so deep I didn't know I had depths left. "I know, baby. I know you didn't." "I would have been there," he said fiercely, pulling back to look at me. "If I'd known, I would have skipped every class. I would have driven 100 miles an hour. I would have been there, Grandma. You have to know that." I cupped his face in my hands. This beautiful boy, who'd somehow grown into a beautiful young man despite his father's terrible example. "I know, Ethan. You're here now. That's what matters." We went inside. He picked up the carnations and put them in water while I checked the pot roast. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd discovered my children's betrayal just hours ago, and we talked about Robert. Really talked. Ethan told me stories I'd never heard. How Robert had taught him to fix his bike chain when Marcus said to just buy a new bike. How Robert had come to his middle school science fair when both his parents had work emergencies. How Robert had taken him fishing last summer and they'd talked about college and dreams and what it meant to be a good man. "Grandpa told me something that day," Ethan said quietly. He said, "Ethan, when I'm gone, take care of your grandmother. She's the strongest person I know, but everyone needs someone. You've made it this far, go ahead and hit, like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because who knows, the next story might just touch your heart." Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. He said that? "Yes, ma'am," and I promised him I would. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm here, Grandma. I'm not going anywhere." We ate dinner together as the rain started to fall outside, and for the first time in days, maybe months, maybe years, I didn't feel alone. After dinner, as Ethan was washing dishes and telling me about his biochemistry major, I made a decision. "Ethan, there's something I need to show you." I got the folder from my bedroom and brought it to the kitchen table. I showed him everything, the financial records, the screenshot, the timeline of betrayal. I watched his face change as he read, watched anger and disgust, and then deep sadness pass over his features. When he finished, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "Grandma, I don't know what to say. I knew Dad was. I knew he wasn't great about visiting Grandpa, but this is." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I've changed my will, Ethan. I saw my lawyer today." His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean I've removed your father and your aunt from my will entirely. Everything, the house, the cabin, all the money, it's going into a trust for you." Ethan's face went pale. "Grandma, no. You can't. I don't want. This isn't about money." "I know it's not about money for you," I interrupted gently. "That's exactly why you're the one who deserves it. Your father and aunt have made it very clear that I'm nothing but an ATM to them. You've never asked me for a single thing, Ethan. You've only ever given your time, your attention, your love. The kind of love that shows up when it matters. But they're going to be so angry, Ethan said, looking scared now. Dad's going to lose his mind. Aunt Jessica is going to Grandma. This is going to cause a huge fight. I smiled sadly. Let them fight. I've spent 74 years avoiding conflict, smoothing things over, making everyone else comfortable at my own expense. I'm done with that now. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the documents. Then he looked up at me, and I saw something in his expression that reminded me so much of Robert it hurt. Then I'm going to take care of you, Grandma. The way Grandpa asked me to. The way you deserve. I promise you that. And unlike his father's promises, I knew Ethan meant every word. The rain grew heavier as Ethan and I sat together in the kitchen, the sound drumming against the roof like 1,000 tiny accusations. After he left, promising to return the next day after his classes, I found myself unable to sleep again. The house felt different now, charged with the weight of decisions made and wars yet to come. At 2 a.m, I went down to the basement. Our basement was Robert's domain, organized with military precision, everything labeled and sorted. He'd built floor-to-ceiling shelves in 1987, sturdy pine that still held strong after nearly 40 years. On those shelves were boxes containing our entire lives. Tax returns dating back to the 70s, medical records, insurance documents, and 3 filing cabinets he'd labeled in his careful block printing. House, taxes, and family. I hadn't opened the family cabinet since Robert went into Providence Elder Place. I'd been too afraid of what memories might ambush me. But tonight, I needed to see everything. I needed to understand the complete scope of what I'd given and what had been taken. The metal drawer groaned as I pulled it open. Inside were folders, dozens of them, each one meticulously labeled in my handwriting this time, not Robert's. I'd been the one to track our financial help to the children. Robert had wanted to, saying, "We need to know where our money goes, Maggie," but I'd insisted on doing it myself. Maybe some part of me had known, even then, that I needed this evidence. I pulled out the folder labeled Marcus, Education, and Career. Inside were canceled checks, bank transfer receipts, and notes I'd made documenting every conversation. August 2003, check for $45,000. Marcus had called on a Tuesday evening, his voice tight with stress. "Mom, I got into UW's MBA program, but Dad and I are stretched thin with the mortgage. Can you help? Just this once? I'll pay you back when I graduate and get a promotion." I remembered Robert's hesitation. We were both still working me at Harborview, him at Boeing, but we were trying to maximize our retirement contributions. We were in our 50s then, no longer young, thinking about our future. "It's for his future," I'd told Robert. "Education is the one thing no one can take away from him." Robert had signed the check. Marcus never mentioned repayment again. December 2008, wire transfer for $60,000. The economy was collapsing. The housing market had crashed. Marcus called 2 days before Christmas. "Mom, Dad, I found the perfect townhouse in Bellevue, but it's a buyer's market. I need to move fast. The down payment is due in 72 hours. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Can you help?" I remembered that conversation so clearly. I was wrapping presents in our living room, watching the news reports about the recession, about people losing their homes, their jobs, their retirement savings, and I'd thought, at least we can help our son achieve the American dream. We liquidated part of our emergency fund, $60,000, wired on Christmas Eve. Marcus moved into the townhouse in January. We visited once. He sold it 3 years later for a $300,000 profit and bought a bigger house. He never offered us a penny of those profits. September 2012, check for $25,000. Marcus had started a tech startup with 2 colleagues from Amazon. "Mom, this is it. This is my chance to be more than just an employee. We've got investors interested, but we need bridge funding to get to our Series A. Dad's always talked about entrepreneurship. Don't you want to see me succeed?" Robert had been skeptical. "These tech startups fail 90% of the time, Maggie." But Marcus was my son, my firstborn, the baby I'd carried for 9 months and nearly died delivering because of complications. How could I say no? The company folded 8 months later. Marcus never mentioned it again, moved on to the next thing as if $25,000 was pocket change. I kept reading, check after check, year after year. The Tesla in 2015. It's for client meetings, Mom. Image matters in tech. The private school tuition in 2017. Sophia deserves the best education. The medical bills in 2019. Our insurance is terrible, Mom. Can you help just this time? Every time was just this time. Every promise to repay was forgotten within months. Total for Marcus, $250,000. I pulled out the next folder. Jessica, personal and business. June 2005. Check for $55,000. Jessica's wedding. I remembered her sitting at this very kitchen table, wedding magazines spread out everywhere, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I've dreamed about my wedding day since I was a little girl. Chad's parents are paying for the rehearsal dinner, but they said we have to cover the reception ourselves. I can't get married in some cheap hotel ballroom. Please, Mom. It's the only wedding I'll ever have. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me now, given her current divorce. Robert and I had been saving for a cruise to Alaska, our 30th anniversary present to ourselves. We'd had the brochures, had marked the calendar. Instead, we wrote Jessica a check and watched her marry a man who turned out to be a serial adulterer. The marriage lasted 18 years, though the last 10 were clearly miserable. We never took that cruise. Robert's Alzheimer's diagnosis came in 2019, and cruises were no longer possible. March 2007, check for $38,000. Jessica's car had been repossessed. She'd missed 6 payments despite posting Instagram photos of spa days and shopping trips to Nordstrom. Mom, I can't take the kids to school without a car. Child Protective Services could get involved. Please, I need an SUV, something safe. Robert had been angry about that one. She's irresponsible with money, Maggie. We're enabling her. But I'd thought about my grandchildren, sweet Emma and little Tyler, and I'd written the check anyway. Jessica bought a brand new SUV. She could have bought a reliable used car for a third of the price, but I need to look successful, Mom. It matters for the kids' social standing. July 2010, check for $35,000. The nail salon. Jessica had been so excited, her eyes shining with dreams. Mom, this is my passion. I'm so good at nail art, everyone says so. I've got a perfect location in Capitol Hill, and the lease is reasonable. I just need startup capital. I'll pay you back from profits within 2 years. I promise. Robert and I had been planning to replace our roof. It had been leaking in the northwest corner for 2 years, and we'd been putting buckets under the drips during Seattle's rainy seasons. Instead, we wrote Jessica a check and kept using buckets for 2 more years. The salon closed after 22 months. Jessica never mentioned the $35,000 again, but I remember she posted on Facebook, "Sometimes dreams don't work out, but that's okay. Closing this chapter and opening a new one. #new beginnings." I kept reading. The bankruptcy lawyer in 2014, $22,000 to clean up the mess from the failed salon. The Mercedes in 2017, $28,000 for reliable family transportation. The plastic surgery in 2020, $45,000 because I need to feel confident again, Mom. My therapist says self-esteem is crucial for mental health. That one had hurt especially. I'd liquidated part of my nursing pension to pay for Jessica's nose job and breast augmentation. Robert had been in the nursing home by then, declining rapidly. I'd needed that money for his care, for the things Medicare didn't cover, for the little comforts that made his confusion and fear more bearable. But Jessica had cried on the phone. "Mom, please, I look in the mirror and I hate myself. I need this, you're the only one who understands." So I'd given her the money and watched her post before and after photos on Instagram with captions about self-love and investing in yourself. Total for Jessica, $273,000. Combined total, $523,000. But that wasn't everything. I pulled out another folder, one I'd started keeping just 5 years ago, time and labor, non-monetary contributions. Inside were calendar pages where I'd tracked every time I'd babysat, every meal I'd cooked, every errand I'd run, every crisis I'd managed for my children. I'd started tracking after a therapist friend had told me, "Maggie, you need to value your time. You're retired. Your time is your most precious resource now." Marcus's children, babysitting hours, 2019 to 2024, 743 hours. That was over 30 full days. An entire month of my life spent watching his children while he and Vanessa went to Napa Valley, to Hawaii, to Palm Springs, to Europe. Just a weekend, Mom. We need couple time. I'd canceled doctor's appointments, skipped my book club, missed my own social engagements. Jessica's children, babysitting hours, 2019 to 2024, 618 hours. Another 25 days. I'd picked Emma and Tyler up from school countless times, taken them to dental appointments when Jessica had emergency spa appointments, nursed them through stomach bugs and ear infections while Jessica was taking a mental health day. Meals cooked for family gatherings where I provided everything. 137 dinners over 24 years. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter, every birthday. I'd cooked and cleaned and hosted while Marcus and Jessica showed up empty-handed, ate, took leftovers, and left. You're such a good cook, Mom. We could never do what you do. They could have tried. Emergency financial counseling and crisis management. 89 documented incidents. Every time Jessica's checking account was overdrawn, every time Marcus needed help negotiating with contractors or dealing with insurance claims or figuring out tax problems. Hours on the phone, helping them navigate adult responsibilities they should have mastered themselves. I documented it all, not because I was keeping score, but because some part of me even then knew that I needed proof. Proof that I'd loved them. Proof that I'd tried. Proof that when they inevitably claimed I'd been a bad mother, I could point to this mountain of evidence and say, look at what I gave you. Look at how I loved you. I sat on the basement floor, surrounded by folders and receipts and canceled checks, and I did something I hadn't done in all the years since Robert's diagnosis. I screamed. It started as a sob, but it turned into a scream raw and primal and full of every ounce of pain and betrayal and exhaustion I'd been carrying. I screamed until my throat was raw, until I had no voice left, until the only sound was my ragged breathing echoing off the basement walls. When I finally stopped, I felt hollow, emptied out, but also, strangely, lighter. I gathered all the folders and carried them upstairs. I spread everything across the dining room table, our beautiful oak dining table that Robert had refinished by hand in 1995, that we'd gathered around for thousands of meals, for homework sessions and board games and long conversations about life and love and everything that mattered. I took photos of everything with my iPad, every check, every receipt, every calendar page. I organized it all into a digital folder and backed it up to the cloud. Evidence. Just in case. At 5:30 in the morning, exhausted but unable to stop, I opened my laptop and began writing. I wrote down every memory, every broken promise, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. I wrote about the Alaska cruise we never took, the roof we delayed fixing, the retirement account we'd depleted. I wrote about Robert sitting in Providence Elder Place, asking when are the kids coming, while I lied and said, soon, honey. They'll be here soon. I wrote about the funeral, about standing alone while rain pounded the earth and a man I'd loved for 52 years was lowered into the ground. By 7 a.m., I had 27 pages. A complete accounting of 24 years of unconditional love met with conditional appreciation. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, seriously, we need to talk about Dad's estate. This is important. Call me today. Not how are you holding up, not I'm sorry I missed the funeral, not I love you, Mom, and I'm here for you. Just, we need to talk about money. I deleted the text. Another text came through, this one from Jessica. Mom, I'm coming by today around noon. We need to go through Dad's things. Brad says it's important to inventory everything for estate purposes. Also, can I borrow your car? Mine's in the shop and I have a hair appointment at 3. She wanted to borrow my car. My car. The day after her father's funeral that she didn't attend. And she wanted to inventory Robert's things, the man who'd carried her on his shoulders, who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd walked her down the aisle at that $55,000 wedding, who'd loved her unconditionally until Alzheimer's stole his ability to love anything at all. I looked at that text message for a long time. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Marcus's number. Both of my children deleted from my phone like spam callers. I sat in the silence of my dining room, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and I felt the first genuine smile cross my face since Robert died. At 9 a.m., Elizabeth Wong called. "Margaret, the documents are ready. Can you come in at 1 o'clock to sign?" "I'll be there." At 10 a.m., Ethan texted, "Good morning, Grandma. Thinking about you. Can I bring lunch after I sign?" "I'll bring sandwiches from your favorite deli." I texted back, "That would be wonderful, sweetheart. Come at 2:30. I'll be home by then." At 11:45, someone started pounding on my front door. Hard, aggressive knocking that made the wood rattle in its frame. "Mom, open the door. I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway." "Marcus," my son was screaming at me through my front door. "Mom, we need to talk right now. You can't just ignore me. Open this door." I stood in my dining room, looking at the pile of evidence on my table, and I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I didn't respond. Let him pound. Let him scream. Let him finally understand what it feels like to be ignored, to be dismissed, to not matter. After 5 minutes, the pounding stopped. I heard him on his phone. "Vanessa, she won't open the door. She's ignoring me. This is insane. We need to do something. Maybe we should call Adult Protective Services, claim she's not competent to." "Yeah, okay, I'll call you back." Adult Protective Services. My son was threatening to have me declared incompetent because I wouldn't open my door. I picked up my phone and called Elizabeth Wong. "The documents we're signing today, I need additional protection. My son just threatened to claim I'm not mentally competent." "I'll have Dr. Anderson's statement ready when you arrive," Elizabeth said immediately. "And Margaret? Don't open that door. Don't engage with him at all. Let him show his true character." I hung up and watched through the window as Marcus got back in his Tesla, the $18,000 Tesla. I'd helped him buy and sped away, tires squealing on the wet pavement. At 12:30, I got dressed in my best outfit, the navy suit I'd worn to Robert's retirement party from Boeing, with the pearl necklace he'd given me on our 40th anniversary. I put on lipstick for the first time since the funeral. I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud to my reflection, "You are not a bad mother. You loved them more than they deserved. And now you're choosing differently." Then I drove to Elizabeth Wong's office to sign away my children's inheritance and give it all to the one person who'd shown me what love actually looks like when it's real. Elizabeth Wong's office felt different today. The autumn sunlight streaming through the tall windows seemed sharper, more defined, as if the world itself had gained clarity. Or perhaps it was just me seeing things clearly for the first time in decades. Elizabeth's paralegal, a competent woman in her 30s named Rachel, had prepared everything with meticulous precision. The documents were arranged in neat stacks on the conference table, each page flagged with colored tabs indicating where I needed to sign or initial. "Margaret, before we begin, I want you to meet Dr. Patricia Anderson," Elizabeth said, gesturing to a woman I recognized immediately, my primary care physician for the past 12 years. Dr. Anderson stood and shook my hand warmly. "Margaret, Elizabeth asked me to provide a statement regarding your mental competency. I want you to know I'm doing this gladly. I've reviewed your medical records from the past 5 years, all the cognitive function tests we've done during your annual physicals, your medication management, your ability to handle complex healthcare decisions for Robert. You're as sharp as anyone half your age." "Thank you, Patricia. I've prepared an affidavit stating that you are of completely sound mind, that you demonstrate excellent judgment and decision-making capacity, and that you are under no undue influence from any party." She handed a notarized document to Elizabeth. "If your children try to claim otherwise, they'll have to contend with my testimony and 15 years of medical documentation." I felt tears prick my eyes. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," Dr. Anderson said firmly. "I was at Providence Elder Place regularly during Robert's final months. I saw you there every single day reading to him, playing his favorite music, holding his hand even when he didn't recognize you. I never once saw your children visit. Not once in the entire year he was there." The room fell silent. Even Rachel, who'd been organizing papers, stopped moving. "So yes," Dr. Anderson continued, "I absolutely had to do this. What you're doing isn't vindictive, Margaret, it's justice." After she left, Elizabeth walked me through each document. The language was dense and legal, but Elizabeth translated it into plain English. "This clause removes Marcus Sullivan as beneficiary from all retirement accounts, life insurance policies, and real estate holdings. This section removes Jessica Sullivan Thompson from the same. This establishes the irrevocable trust for Ethan Sullivan with controlled disbursement until age 25. This prohibits Marcus and Jessica from contesting without forfeiting all other potential claims. This names me as trustee until Ethan reaches majority age for full access. I signed my name 34 times, Margaret Louise Sullivan. Over and over, each signature a small act of rebellion, a tiny reclamation of power. When I signed the final page, I felt something shift inside my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. My soul, perhaps. As if I'd been carrying chains I didn't know existed, and now they'd fallen away. "It's done," Elizabeth said. "As of this moment, your estate plan is legally binding. Marcus and Jessica are no longer beneficiaries of anything. Ethan inherits everything through an ironclad trust structure." I nodded, unable to speak. "Margaret, there's one more thing." Elizabeth pulled out a separate document. "I've prepared a letter of explanation, a document you can choose to give to Marcus and Jessica when they inevitably demand to know why you've done this. It's not legally required, but some people find it provides closure." I read the letter. It was perfectly professional, listing facts without emotion. The funeral they didn't attend, the financial support never repaid, the years of one-sided giving. It was fair and accurate and completely bloodless. "No," I said, handing it back. "I don't owe them an explanation. They know what they did. If they don't, then explaining won't help." Elizabeth smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. "I was hoping you'd say that." I left the office at 2:15, clutching copies of all the signed documents in a leather portfolio Elizabeth had given me. "Keep these somewhere safe," she'd instructed. "When the confrontation comes, and it will come, you'll want proof." I drove home through Seattle's afternoon traffic, past Pike Place Market where Robert and I used to buy fresh flowers every Saturday morning, past the marina where we'd sometimes sit and watch the boats, past all the landmarks of a life we'd built together. A life our children had taken for granted. Ethan was already waiting on my porch when I arrived, sitting on the steps with 2 bags from Tat's Delicatessen, the Jewish deli Robert had loved. "I got pastrami on rye for you," he said, standing up. "Extra pickles, just how Grandpa always ordered yours." The fact that he remembered this detail, this tiny, insignificant detail, made me start crying again. "Grandma, what's wrong? Did something happen at the lawyer's office?" "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Everything is finally right." I unlocked the door. "Come inside. I need to tell you something." We sat in the kitchen, sandwiches untouched, while I explained everything I'd signed that afternoon. Ethan's face cycled through disbelief, horror, and finally, a kind of grim understanding. "They're going to lose their minds," he said quietly. "I know. Dad is going to." Ethan stopped, shook his head. "I don't even know what he's going to do. He's been planning on this money for years, Grandma. He talks about it. About what he's going to do when you and Grandpa's estate finally transfers. Like you're already dead. Like he's just waiting." Each word was a fresh wound, but I'd expected this. "What about Jessica?" Aunt Jessica told my mom last Christmas that she was counting on her inheritance to restart her life after the divorce. She said she'd already looked at condos in Bellevue, expensive ones, and she was planning to buy one as soon as Mom and Dad's money came through. Ethan looked sick. That's what she called it, Mom and Dad's money, like it was already hers. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. "Grandma, I don't want this to destroy what's left of our family." "What's left of our family is you and me," I said gently. Marcus and Jessica destroyed the family themselves when they chose not to show up for their father's funeral. I'm just acknowledging reality. "But I don't need the money," Ethan insisted. "I have student loans, yeah, but I'll pay them off eventually. I don't need a house or a cabin or—" "This isn't about what you need," I interrupted. "It's about what you've earned. Not financially earned, morally earned. You showed up, Ethan. When it mattered, when it was hard, when there was nothing to gain from it, you showed up. That's worth more than any amount of money." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Grandpa was the best man I ever knew. Of course I showed up. Your father apparently disagreed." We finally ate our sandwiches, talking about Robert, sharing memories. Ethan told me stories I'd never heard, private conversations he'd had with his grandfather about integrity and character and what it means to be a man. Grandpa told me last summer, when we went fishing at Lake Washington, he said, Ethan, success isn't measured by your job title or your bank account. It's measured by who shows up at your funeral. I closed my eyes, hearing Robert's voice in those words. He was right. Nobody showed up for him except you, Ethan said, his voice breaking. And that's the worst thing I've ever heard. The saddest thing, the most wrong thing. We cleaned up lunch together, and Ethan was about to leave for his evening class when we heard a car pull into the driveway, then another, then shouting. I looked out the window. Marcus's Tesla, Jessica's Mercedes SUV, the one I'd helped her buy. Both of them were here, together, and they were angry. "Grandma, don't open the door," Ethan said immediately, moving to stand between me and the front entrance. But I'd already made my decision. No. Let them come. Let's get this over with. Marcus pounded on the door with his fist, the same aggressive pounding from this morning. "Mom, open this door right now. I know you're in there. I saw Ethan's car." I opened the door slowly, calmly. Marcus nearly stumbled forward, his fist still raised. Jessica stood behind him, arms crossed, her face contorted with rage. "What the hell is going on?" Marcus demanded, pushing past me into my house without being invited. "Why are you ignoring my calls? Why wouldn't you open the door this morning? We need to talk about Dad's estate right now." "Get out of my house," I said quietly. Marcus froze. "What?" I said, "Get out of my house. You barged in without permission. Leave." "Are you serious right now?" Jessica screeched, her voice hitting a pitch that hurt my ears. "After everything we've been through? After we lost Dad? You're going to talk to us like this?" "You didn't lose Dad," I said, my voice still eerily calm. "You threw him away. There's a difference." "That's not fair." Jessica's face was red now, tears streaming down her artificially enhanced cheeks. I was dealing with a divorce, the most traumatic thing that can happen to a person. My therapist said. "I don't care what your therapist said," I interrupted. "Your father died. Your father, who raised you, who loved you, who gave you everything. And you chose a nail appointment over his funeral." "It wasn't a nail appointment," Jessica screamed. "It was mediation. Legal mediation that cost $500 an hour. I couldn't just reschedule. I rescheduled my own husband's chemotherapy appointments to babysit your children," I said. "I canceled my mammogram twice to help you move apartments. I liquidated my retirement account to pay for your plastic surgery. But you couldn't reschedule one appointment to say goodbye to your father?" Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. Marcus stepped forward, his face ugly with anger. "So that's what this is about? You're punishing us? Guilting us because we had legitimate reasons for missing one funeral?" "One funeral," I repeated. "Your father's funeral. The only funeral he'll ever have." "He was already gone," Marcus shouted, jabbing his finger at me. "Dad's been gone for 5 years. That funeral was just a formality. Just a ceremony for a body that didn't even contain the man we knew anymore." The words hit me like physical blows. Ethan stepped forward. "Don't you dare talk to Grandma like that." "Stay out of this, Ethan," Marcus snapped. "This is between me and my mother." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You don't get to talk to her like that. Not in her own house. Not ever." "Oh, that's rich," Jessica laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. The golden grandchild defending poor Grandma. "Are you enjoying your role as the favorite?" "There are no favorites," I said. "There are people who show up and people who don't. Ethan showed up, you didn't." "We had reasons," Marcus roared. "Valid reasons. My presentation was crucial for my career. Do you know how competitive Amazon is? Do you know what it takes to stay relevant in tech? Do you know what it took for me to watch your father die over 5 years?" I asked quietly. "To watch Alzheimer's erase him piece by piece? To hold his hand while he asked for his children and I had to lie and say you'd visit soon? Do you know what it cost me?" "We visited," Jessica protested. "I visited." "You visited once in 12 months, I said. Once. You took a selfie with him, posted it on Instagram with a bunch of hashtags about family, and left after 20 minutes because you had a hair appointment." Jessica's face went pale. She hadn't realized I knew about that. "And you?" I turned to Marcus. "You didn't visit at all in the last 6 months of his life. Not once. The nursing staff asked me if you even existed." "I was busy," Marcus's voice cracked. "I have 3 kids, a demanding job, a mortgage. I couldn't just drop everything to sit and watch Dad not recognize me." "But you could drop everything to play golf," I said. You posted photos. I saw them. You had time for client dinners and tech conferences and Mariners games, just not for your dying father. The room fell silent except for Jessica's crying loud theatrical sobs that sounded practiced. Marcus's face changed. The anger faded, replaced by something calculating. This is about the will, isn't it? You've changed the will. I said nothing. Oh my God, Jessica gasped. She's changed the will. That's why she met with Elizabeth Wong today. That's why she's being so cruel. I'm not being cruel, I said. I'm being honest. What did you do? Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet now. What did you change? That's between me and my attorney. Bullshit, Marcus exploded. We have a right to know. That's our inheritance. That money is ours. That money is mine, I corrected. Money that your father and I earned over 50 years of work. Money we saved while you were spending everything we gave you. And I'll decide what happens to it. Jessica grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. Mom, please. Please tell me you didn't do something stupid. Please tell me you didn't give everything to Ethan. I pulled my arm away, feeling the sting where her nails had scratched me. Get your hands off me. Answer the question, she shrieked. Did you give our money to Ethan? It's not your money, I shouted, my composure finally cracking. It was never your money. It's my money. Mine and Robert's. We earned it. We saved it. And we can give it to whoever we choose. We're your children, Jessica screamed. Your own children. How can you do this to us? How could you do what you did to your father? I screamed back, my voice hoarse with rage and grief. How could you let him die alone? How could you skip his funeral? How could you post pictures of mimosas and golf games while he was being buried? How could you? The room fell absolutely silent. I was shaking, my whole body trembling with fury and heartbreak. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder. Grandma, sit down, please. But I couldn't sit. I couldn't be still. 50 years of being calm, of being accommodating, of smoothing things over had just exploded out of me. Marcus's face was white. So you're punishing us. You're actually punishing your own children because we missed one day. It wasn't one day, I said, my voice raw. It was 5 years of days. It was every day you didn't visit, every call you didn't make, every promise you broke. Your father asked for you until the Alzheimer's stole even that away from him. Do you understand? He forgot his own name, but he still remembered he had children. He still asked where you were. And I had to lie to him, over and over, because the truth that you just didn't care enough would have broken whatever was left of his heart. Jessica sank into a chair, her face in her hands, but Marcus stood rigid, his jaw clenched. Fine, he said coldly. You want to play this game? We'll contest the will. We'll prove you're not mentally competent. We'll prove Ethan manipulated you while you were grieving. We'll tie this up in court for years if we have to. No, you won't, Elizabeth Wong said. We all turned. Elizabeth stood in my doorway, briefcase in hand. She must have followed me from her office, anticipating this exact confrontation. Mrs. Sullivan has full mental competency, documented by her physician and notarized today. The will is ironclad and includes a no contest clause. If either of you challenges it, you forfeit any and all other potential bequests, including personal items, family heirlooms, everything. And based on what I've just witnessed, including you physically grabbing your mother and threatening her, I'd advise against any legal action. You won't win, and you'll only destroy what's left of this family. Marcus and Jessica stared at Elizabeth like she was a ghost. Now, Elizabeth continued calmly, I suggest you both leave. Immediately. Before this situation escalates further, Marcus turned to me one last time. You're going to regret this, Mom. When you're old and alone and you need us, you're going to regret this so much. I'm already old, I said quietly. And I've never been more alone than I was at your father's funeral. So there's nothing left for me to regret. Marcus grabbed Jessica's arm and pulled her toward the door. Come on, let's go, she's not worth it. And with those final words, she's not worth it, my son left my house, perhaps for the last time. The door slammed. Through the window, I watched them speed away, tires squealing, two angry people who'd just lost $2 million and couldn't understand it was their own fault. I stood in my living room, shaking, and collapsed into Robert's old recliner. Ethan knelt beside me. Grandma, are you okay? No, I whispered. But I will be. Elizabeth set her briefcase down. That went exactly as I expected. They showed their true character. If this ever goes to court, which it won't, we have Ethan as a witness to their behavior. I recorded it, Ethan said quietly, holding up his phone. Everything. Just in case. I looked at my grandson, this thoughtful, strategic, protective young man, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Thank you, I whispered. Both of you. Thank you for standing with me. Always, Ethan said. I promised Grandpa I'd take care of you. I meant it. Elizabeth left after making me promise to call if Marcus or Jessica returned. Ethan stayed until after dark, making sure I ate dinner, making sure I was steady before he left for his apartment. After he drove away, I sat alone in my house, the house Robert and I had filled with love and laughter and family dinners and ordinary magic, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace, not happiness. Not yet. But peace. The war had begun, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of battle. I didn't sleep again that night. How could I, after what had just happened? My children, my own flesh and blood, had stood in my living room and called me cruel, accused me of punishment, threatened me with legal action. Marcus's final words echoed in my head. She's not worth it. 74 years old, and my son had just told me I wasn't worth fighting for. At 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I went back down to the basement, back to the filing cabinets, back to the evidence of a lifetime of giving that had bought me nothing but contempt. But this time, I wasn't looking at financial records. I was looking for something else, something I'd forgotten existed until tonight's confrontation had shaken loose a memory. In the back of the bottom drawer, behind folders of old tax returns and insurance policies, I found what I was searching for, a shoebox labeled Letters and Cards, 1985 to 2010. Robert had saved them, meticulously organizing every birthday card, every Mother's Day note, every scrap of paper our children had ever given us. I carried the box upstairs and dumped its contents across the dining room table. Dozens of cards spilled out construction paper creations from elementary school, store-bought cards from their teenage years, expensive Hallmark sentiments from their adult lives. I picked up the first one randomly, a Mother's Day card from Marcus, age 8, 1989. On the front, he'd drawn a stick figure family in crayon, me, Robert, him, and baby Jessica. Inside, in his careful child's printing, "Dear Mom, you are the best mom in the world. I love you more than video games. Love, Marcus." I held that card and remembered 8-year-old Marcus, gap-toothed and freckled, so proud when he'd presented it to me at breakfast. I'd cried then, overwhelmed by the simple purity of a child's love. Where had that child gone? When had he transformed into the man who just called me not worth it? I picked up another card, Jessica, age 10, 1992. A birthday card with glitter glued all over it. I remembered finding glitter in my carpet for months afterward. "Mom, you're my best friend. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Happy birthday. Love always, Jessica." I wanted to be just like you. I set the card down carefully, as if it might shatter. That little girl had wanted to be like me. And now? Now she was a woman who'd chosen champagne with her divorce lawyer over her father's burial. I kept reading, card after card, year after year, watching my children's handwriting mature, their messages become more sophisticated. But something else changed too, something subtle but unmistakable. 1995, Marcus's high school graduation card to me. "Thanks for everything, Mom. Couldn't have done it without your support." 2003, when I'd written the check for his MBA, "Mom, you're amazing. This means everything to me. I'll make you proud. Love, Marcus." 2008, when I'd sent the down payment for his townhouse. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you. You've given me the foundation to build my future. I love you." Every card came after money. Every expression of love was tied to a financial transaction. I found Jessica's cards, following the same pattern. Sweet, genuine affection in childhood. Then, as she got older, every "I love you" came attached to a request or a thank you for money given. 2005, after the wedding. "Mom, you made my dreams come true. I'll never forget what you did for me." 2010, after the nail salon money. "You believe in me when nobody else does. I'm so lucky to have you." 2020, after the plastic surgery. "You've given me my confidence back. I love you so much. I spread all the cards across the table chronologically and stared at them like a detective examining evidence. The timeline was clear. Unconditional love in childhood, transactional love in adulthood. Somewhere along the way, I'd taught them that love could be bought. That mom was an ATM that dispensed affection along with cash. But whose fault was that? Theirs for learning the lesson or mine for teaching it? I picked up one more item from the box, a letter, not a card, written on notebook paper, dated August 2019. From Ethan, age 14. Dear Grandma Maggie and Grandpa Robert, thank you for taking me camping last weekend. Dad said he was too busy with work, but you guys took me anyway. We had the best time at Mount Rainier. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but sometimes I wish you were my parents instead of my grandparents. You actually listen when I talk. You ask me questions about stuff I care about, not just about my grades or if I'm being productive. Grandpa, thank you for teaching me how to fish, and thank you for telling me that story about your time in Vietnam. Dad never talks about real stuff like that. He just talks about work and stocks and how I need to optimize my trajectory or whatever. Grandma, thank you for making your famous pot roast and for letting me help, and thank you for not judging me when I told you I might not want to work in tech like Dad. You said I should follow my heart. Dad says hearts are inefficient. I know I'm just a kid and maybe my opinion doesn't matter much, but I think you two are the best people I know. When I grow up, I want to be like you guys, kind and patient and actually caring about people instead of just using them. I love you both so much. Your grandson, Ethan. I read that letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. 14 years old, and Ethan had already understood what his father had forgotten, that people matter more than productivity, that love is about showing up, that kindness is the only currency that matters. Robert had saved this letter. He'd tucked it into this box 5 years ago, and I'd never seen it until now. Had he known even then that Ethan was different, that this boy would be the one to carry forward the values we'd tried so hard to instill in our own children? I carefully refolded the letter and placed it in my pocket, close to my heart. Then I turned to a new task. I opened my laptop and began creating a document, a complete inventory of everything Marcus and Jessica had said to me over the years versus what they'd actually done. Words versus actions. Promises versus reality. Marcus, promises made. I'll pay you back when I get my promotion. Never repaid, MBA loan, 2003. This is just a temporary loan. Never repaid, down payment, 2008. I'll visit Dad every week. Visited 3 times in 5 years. We'll have you over for dinner soon. Last dinner invitation, 2021. The kids miss you so much. Last time I saw my grandchildren without being asked to babysit, 2022. You're the most important person in our lives. Missed father's funeral for work presentation. Jessica, promises made. I'll make you so proud with this salon. Business failed after 22 months. I'll pay you back from profits. Never repaid, $35,000. I'll bring the kids to visit Grandpa every month. Visited once in 12 months. You'll always be my best friend. Last genuine conversation not about money, 2018. I'll be there for you when you need me. Not there for father's funeral. Nail appointment. This is the last time I'll ever ask for money. Asked 7 more times after this statement. The list went on and on. Pages of broken promises, casual lies, manipulations disguised as love. At 5:30 a.m., my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Mrs. Sullivan? This is Detective Karen Morrison from Seattle Police Department. I'm calling because we received a wellness check request for your address. A Marcus Sullivan called, claiming his elderly mother was behaving erratically and he was concerned for her safety. Are you all right? My blood ran cold. Marcus had called the police on me. My own son had tried to have me evaluated as mentally incompetent. I'm perfectly fine, Detective. My son and I had a disagreement yesterday about family matters. I'm 74 years old, but I'm in excellent health, both physically and mentally. I have documentation from my physician if you need it. There was a pause. Ma'am, I've been doing wellness checks for 15 years. I can usually tell within 30 seconds of a phone call if someone is in distress. You sound completely lucid and calm. Would you like to file a report about your son's false claim? No. But I would like it documented that this call was made and found to be without merit. Already done. And Mrs. Sullivan? I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Unfortunately, I see this kind of thing a lot adult children trying to prove parents are incompetent when there's money involved. It's one of the uglier parts of my job. After I hung up, I immediately called Elizabeth Wong's emergency number. She answered on the second ring, sounding wide awake despite the early hour. Margaret, what's wrong? I told her about the police call. Elizabeth was silent for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was hard as steel. That was a mistake on Marcus's part. A huge mistake. He just created a paper trail that proves he's harassing you. Forward me the detective's information. This actually strengthens our case if he tries to contest the will. Elizabeth, how much worse is this going to get? Honestly? Probably much worse before it gets better. People don't give up on $2 million easily. But Margaret, you need to understand something. You hold all the power here. The will is legal, properly executed, and uncontestable. They can scream and threaten and call the police and file frivolous lawsuits, but at the end of the day, they will lose. The only question is how much damage they'll do to themselves and to any remaining relationship with you in the process. After I hung up, I sat in the growing dawn light and thought about that phrase. Any remaining relationship with you. Was there a relationship left to damage? Or had Marcus and Jessica already destroyed it so thoroughly that we were just going through the motions of a final dissolution? At 7 a.m., I received an email from Jessica. The subject line read, "Mom, please read this." I almost deleted it without opening, but something made me click. "Mom, I've been up all night thinking about our fight. I'm sorry for how I acted. I'm sorry for raising my voice and saying things I didn't mean. You're right that I should have been at Dad's funeral. I made a terrible choice and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But Mom, you have to understand I'm drowning here. The divorce is destroying me financially and emotionally. Chad is trying to take the kids. My lawyer says if I don't fight with everything I have, I could lose custody. That mediation wasn't just some appointment I could reschedule. It was literally about whether I get to keep my children. If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've asked you for too much money over the years. I know I haven't been the daughter you deserved. But please, Mom, please don't cut me out of your life. Don't cut me out of Dad's legacy. That money isn't just money to me, it's security for my kids. It's a future for Emma and Tyler. I'm begging you, please reconsider. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll pay you back. I'll set up a payment plan for everything I owe. I'll visit you every week. I'll be the daughter you always wanted me to be. Just please don't take away my inheritance. Please don't give everything to Ethan. It's not fair to punish my children for my mistakes. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you, even when I didn't show it well. Please forgive me. Jessica. I read that email 5 times, and each time I felt the same thing, nothing. No sympathy, no wavering, no desire to forgive. Because I'd heard these words before. Different circumstances, same promises. I'll be better. I'll do anything. I love you. Always after I'd said no to something, always when there was something she wanted. The email was manipulation dressed up as remorse. Every sentence was calculated to prey on my emotions. The children, the custody battle, the promise to change, the declaration of love. But nowhere in that entire email did Jessica say, "I'm sorry Dad is dead. I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye to him. I'm sorry I broke your heart." It was all about her. Her divorce, her money, her future, her needs. I closed the email and began typing my response. Jessica, I received your email. I appreciate that you took the time to write it. However, my decision stands. The will has been legally executed and is not subject to negotiation or reconsideration. You mentioned that you'll do anything and be the daughter I always wanted. But the daughter I wanted was the one who showed up at her father's funeral. That was all I ever wanted. Presents, not promises. You say it's not fair to punish your children for your mistakes, but I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply choosing to give my estate to someone who demonstrated love when it mattered. Ethan will be a good steward of this inheritance, and I trust he'll use it wisely. Your children will be fine. You have a job, a car, and opportunities. What you don't have is an inheritance from me. Many people live full, happy lives without inheritances. I'm confident Emma and Tyler will be among them. I wish you well in your custody battle and in your future, but I will not be changing my will. Margaret. I read my response 3 times, making sure every word was exactly what I meant to say. Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Within 2 minutes, my phone rang. Jessica. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Then text messages started flooding in. Mom, please pick up. We need to talk about this. You can't just abandon your own daughter. What about Emma and Tyler? How can you do this to your grandchildren? Fine. Be that way. You'll regret this when I'm gone and you realize what you've lost. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. Dad would be ashamed of you. That last text made me actually laugh, a harsh, bitter sound in my empty kitchen. Dad would be ashamed of me? Robert, who'd asked for his children every day until Alzheimer's stole that memory, would be ashamed that I'd cut off the children who never came. I blocked Jessica's number, then I blocked her email address. The silence that followed felt like a blessing. At 9 a.m., Ethan texted, "Grandma, checking in. How are you this morning? Did they try to contact you?" I called him instead of texting back. They did. Marcus called the police to request a wellness check. Jessica sent a long email begging me to change my mind. Jesus Christ, Ethan breathed. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. What do you mean? I mean, I spent 74 years being afraid of disappointing people, of causing conflict, of not being enough, and last night I caused the biggest conflict of my life. I disappointed my own children. I became exactly what they'll say. I am a cruel, vindictive old woman. And Ethan? I feel lighter than I have in decades. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, "You're not cruel or vindictive, Grandma. You're just done." "There's a difference." "Yes," I said softly. "I'm done. Finally, completely done." "Good," Ethan said firmly. "You deserve to be done. Now, can I take you to breakfast? I think you need to get out of that house for a few hours." We met at the Athenian Inn at Pike Place Market, the restaurant where Robert and I had eaten breakfast every Saturday for 30 years. I ordered the same thing I always ordered: eggs over easy, sourdough toast, and black coffee. Ethan ordered Robert's usual: pancakes with fresh strawberries. "Grandpa always said these were the best pancakes in Seattle," Ethan said, pouring syrup carefully the way Robert had taught him in a spiral from the center out. "They are," I agreed. Or they were. I'm not sure anything tastes quite right without him here to share it. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching tourists browse the market stalls, listening to the street musicians play for tips. "Grandma," Ethan said finally, "I want you to know something. Whatever happens, whether Dad and Aunt Jessica sue, whether this gets ugly, whether I end up with nothing in the end, I'm glad you're doing this. Not because of the money, because you're finally choosing yourself. And that matters more than any inheritance ever could." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You're so much like your grandfather." "I hope so," Ethan said. "He was the best man I ever knew. And you're the strongest woman. Together, you two taught me everything that matters. Dad taught me about stock portfolios and career optimization, but you and Grandpa taught me about love." We finished breakfast and walked through Pike Place Market, past the flower stalls bursting with dahlias and chrysanthemums, past the fish throwers and the original Starbucks, and all the familiar landmarks of my life with Robert. And for the first time since his funeral, I felt him with me. Not gone, just different, present in a new way. "He'd be proud of you," Ethan said, as if reading my thoughts. "Grandpa. He'd be so proud that you're standing up for yourself." "You think so?" "I know so. He told me once, toward the end, when he was having a clear moment. He said, 'Your grandmother has given her whole life to our children, and they've taken everything without ever learning to give back. I hope someday she realizes she doesn't owe them anything anymore.'" I stopped walking. He said that? Word for word. It was one of his last lucid conversations. And then he looked at me and said, "Promise me you'll remind her, Ethan. Promise me you'll tell her she deserves to be happy, not just useful." I stood in the middle of Pike Place Market, tourists flowing around me like water around a stone, and I cried, not sad tears this time, grateful tears. Because even at the end, confused and lost in the fog of Alzheimer's, Robert had still been trying to take care of me. "I promise, Grandpa," I whispered to the Seattle sky. "I promise I'm finally learning." Ethan put his arm around my shoulders, and we walked back to my car together, a grandson and his grandmother, two people who understood that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up when it matters. And we'd both shown up. 3 days after I'd blocked Marcus and Jessica's numbers, my phone rang at 7:15 in the morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee, Robert's old percolator that took forever but made the house smell like home, when an unknown Seattle number appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. For 74 years, I'd answered every phone call, terrified I might miss something important. But I was learning to ignore demands on my time and attention. Still, something made me pick up. Mrs. Sullivan? Margaret Sullivan? Yes, this is she. My name is Vanessa Sullivan. I'm Marcus's wife. Please don't hang up. I should have hung up immediately. But Vanessa's voice was different from what I expected, not angry or demanding, but exhausted, defeated. What do you want, Vanessa? I want to apologize. And to tell you the truth. The truth Marcus doesn't want you to know. I sat down at the kitchen table, my hand trembling slightly. I'm listening. There was a long pause, and I heard what sounded like a door closing, like Vanessa was making sure she was alone. I didn't know about the funeral. Marcus told me it was next week. He said we had time, that we'd go together as a family. I found out the truth 2 days ago when Ethan told me what really happened. My chest tightened. He lied to you? He lied to all of us, me, the kids, everyone. He told Sophia and Oliver and Nora that you'd postpone the funeral because you were too emotional. He said you needed time. And I believed him because why wouldn't I? He's my husband. He's their father. Why would he lie about his own father's funeral? I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know who he really is. And because I'm leaving him. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? Vanessa's voice cracked. I've been married to Marcus for 18 years. 18 years of watching him become someone I don't recognize. Someone who values stock options more than family dinners. Who spends more time on LinkedIn than with his own children. Who hasn't said I love you to me in 3 years without it being followed by but I have to work late. Vanessa, when Ethan told me what Marcus said to you, that you're not worth it, something inside me just broke. Because that's exactly what he said to Sophia last month when she asked him to come to her volleyball game. I'm sorry, honey, but a middle school volleyball game isn't worth missing this client meeting. And I watched my 13-year-old daughter's face just crumble. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the familiar ache of a grandmother's heart breaking for her grandchildren. He doesn't know I'm calling you, Vanessa continued. He'd be furious if he found out. But I need you to know that not everyone in this family agrees with what he did. And I need you to know that your grandchildren are asking about you. They don't understand why they can't see you anymore. Sophia cried last night because she misses you. They can see me anytime, I said immediately. Vanessa, they're always welcome here. You're always welcome here. Marcus said you hate him now. He told the kids that you're cutting off the whole family, that you're giving everything to Ethan because you never loved the rest of them. Rage flooded through me, hot and sharp. That's a lie. That's a complete lie. I know, Vanessa said quietly. I know it is. Because I was there the day you canceled your own surgery to babysit Nora when she had pneumonia. I was there when you gave up your anniversary trip to Alaska so you could help us with Sophia's private school tuition. I've watched you give and give and give for 18 years, and I've never once heard you ask for anything in return. Vanessa, why are you really calling? There was another long pause, because I need you to understand something about Marcus. Something I should have told you years ago but didn't have the courage. He's not the man you raised. I don't know when it happened or how, but somewhere along the way he became someone who only values people for what they can do for him. And I'm terrified that he's teaching our children to be the same way. What do you mean? Last week, before the funeral, Sophia asked if we could visit Grandpa Robert. Marcus told her no, that it was a waste of time because Grandpa wouldn't remember her anyway. And then Vanessa's voice broke. Then he told her that spending time with people who can't benefit your future is inefficient. Those were his exact words, to his 13-year-old daughter. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Oh my God. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm not asking you to change your will. I'm just asking you to understand that his children, your grandchildren, are being raised by a man who measures love in terms of ROI, and I don't know how to stop it anymore. Leave him, I said firmly. Vanessa, if what you're telling me is true, then leave him. Take those children and give them a chance to learn different values. I am leaving him. I've already talked to a divorce attorney. I'm just waiting for the right time to tell him. But Margaret, I need to warn you about something else. Marcus is planning to sue you. He's meeting with estate attorneys next week to contest the will. Elizabeth Wong said he can't contest it. He knows that, but he's not trying to win, he's trying to punish you. He told me last night that even if he can't get the money, he can make your life hell with legal fees and court appearances and depositions. He said, and I quote, "Mom needs to learn that there are consequences for betrayal." I felt my hands ball into fists. Consequences for betrayal. That's rich coming from him. I know. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm so sorry for all of it. I should have stood up to him years ago. I should have protected you and the kids from his toxicity. But I was scared. I didn't want to be a single mother. I didn't want to disrupt the kids' lives. I kept thinking he'd change, that the old Marcus would come back. He won't, I said gently. People don't change unless they want to, and Marcus doesn't think he needs to change. He thinks the world is wrong, not him. I know. I'm finally accepting that. Vanessa took a shaky breath. Can I ask you one more thing? When I leave Marcus, when I file for divorce, can I bring the kids to see you? They miss you so much, and I think they need to be around someone who shows them what real love looks like. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Vanessa, you and those children are welcome in my home anytime, day or night. You have a key, use it. This is your safe place too. Thank you, she whispered. And Margaret? For what it's worth, Robert would be proud of what you're doing. I only met him a few times before the Alzheimer's, but I remember him telling me once that the most important thing in life was knowing when to walk away from people who diminish you. He said he learned that in Vietnam. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at Robert's empty chair. He'd said that, about walking away from people who diminish you. I thought about all the years I'd bent and compromised and made myself smaller to accommodate Marcus's ambitions and Jessica's crises. All the times I'd swallowed hurt feelings and ignored red flags because I didn't want to cause conflict. Robert had tried to tell me. In his quiet way, he'd tried to show me that I deserved better. But I'd been too caught up in being a good mother to see it. At 9 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman I didn't recognize, mid-40s, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. Mrs. Sullivan? My name is Catherine Park. I'm a family law attorney, and Vanessa Sullivan gave me your address. May I come in? I opened the door cautiously. What's this about? I'm representing Vanessa in her divorce from Marcus. She asked me to speak with you about something time-sensitive. It won't take long, I promise. I let her in, offered coffee, which she declined, and we sat in the living room. Mrs. Sullivan, I need to inform you that Marcus is planning to file a lawsuit against you next week, not to contest the will. He knows that's unwinnable. But he's planning to sue for elder financial abuse, claiming you were incompetent when you changed your will and that Ethan manipulated you. That's absurd. I know. But here's what you need to understand. Even absurd lawsuits can be expensive and time-consuming to defend against. Marcus has significant resources through Amazon's legal benefits program. He can afford to drag this out for months, maybe years. Can you? I thought about my savings, my fixed income from nursing pension and Social Security. I don't know. That's why I'm here. Vanessa is willing to testify on your behalf to provide evidence that Marcus lied about the funeral, that he's been financially manipulating you for years, that his children witnessed his abuse toward you. Her testimony would likely get the lawsuit dismissed immediately. Why would she do that? If she's divorcing him, won't this hurt her case? Catherine smiled. Actually, it helps her case. It establishes a pattern of Marcus's manipulative behavior, which strengthens her argument for primary custody of the children. Plus, and Vanessa specifically asked me to tell you this, she's doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because someone needs to stand up for you the way you've always stood up for everyone else. I felt tears sting my eyes for the 100th time this week. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let Elizabeth Wong coordinate with me. Say you'll fight back instead of rolling over. Marcus is counting on you being too tired or too scared or too nice to defend yourself. Prove him wrong. After Catherine left, I immediately called Elizabeth. We need to meet, today. 2 hours later, I was back in Elizabeth's office, this time with Catherine Park joining us via video call. They laid out a strategy that was both brilliant and terrifying. "We're going to file a counter lawsuit," Elizabeth explained. "Not for money for a restraining order and a cease and desist. We'll document every threatening phone call, every false police report, every manipulative text message. We'll get testimony from Vanessa, from Ethan, from Dr. Anderson, from the nursing home staff who witnessed Marcus's neglect of Robert. We're going to build a case so airtight that no judge in Washington state will touch Marcus's frivolous lawsuit." "But that sounds expensive," I said worriedly. "It is. It'll cost approximately $15,000 to $20,000 in legal fees." Elizabeth leaned forward. "But Margaret, think about what it'll cost if you don't fight back. Marcus will bleed you dry with legal fees while destroying your peace of mind. And he'll teach his children that bullying works, that manipulation pays off, that might makes right. Is that the legacy you want?" I thought about Sophia crying because her father called her volleyball game not worth it. I thought about Vanessa's exhausted voice saying, "I don't know how to stop it anymore." I thought about Robert whispering, "Promise me you'll remind her she deserves to be happy, not just useful." "No," I said firmly, "that's not the legacy I want. File the counter lawsuit, all of it." Elizabeth smiled. "Good. Because we already started drafting it. I was just waiting for your permission." Over the next 3 hours, we went through everything. Every text message Marcus had sent. Every email Jessica had written. The recording Ethan had made of their confrontation in my living room. The police report from the false wellness check. Vanessa's willingness to testify. By the time we finished, we had a case file 3 inches thick. "This is going to get ugly," Catherine warned. "Marcus is going to retaliate when he finds out Vanessa is cooperating with us. Jessica is going to ramp up her manipulation tactics. They're going to say terrible things about you to anyone who'll listen. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the shoebox of cards upstairs, about the little boy who'd written "I love you more than video games" in crayon, about the little girl who'd glued glitter on my birthday card, about who they used to be before money and ambition and entitlement poisoned them. "I'm prepared," I said, "because I finally understand something. I can't save them. I spent 50 years trying to love them into being better people, but that's not how it works. People choose who they become. Marcus and Jessica chose ambition and selfishness. I'm choosing peace and dignity." "And Ethan?" Elizabeth asked. "Ethan chose kindness. And that's why he gets everything." I left Elizabeth's office at 5 p.m., exhausted but oddly energized. The war was officially beginning, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had allies now: Elizabeth, Catherine, Vanessa, Ethan. People who saw my worth as something more than a checkbook. When I got home, there was a package on my doorstep. No return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a framed photograph I'd never seen before: Robert and me at Sophia's 5th birthday party, 15 years ago. We were sitting together on my back porch, his arm around my shoulders, both of us laughing at something off camera. On the back, someone had written, "Grandma and Grandpa, the day you taught me that love is measured in presence, not presence. Thank you for every moment. Love, Sophia." Tucked into the frame was a note in Vanessa's handwriting. "She wanted you to have this. She's been carrying it in her backpack since the day Robert went into the nursing home. She told me it reminds her of what family is supposed to look like. V." I held that photograph and cried deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place beyond grief. Because in the middle of all this ugliness, here was proof that something good had survived. That Robert's legacy wasn't entirely lost, that at least one grandchild had learned the right lessons. I placed the photograph on my mantle, right next to the picture of Robert in his Marine Corps uniform. 2 images of the man I'd loved, separated by 50 years but united by the same principle. That honor matters, that character matters, that showing up matters. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sophia. Mom gave me your new number. Can I call you sometime? I miss you, Grandma. I miss Grandpa too. Dad says I shouldn't bother you, but Mom says you're always there for people who need you. I need you." I texted back immediately. "Sweet girl, you can call me anytime. Day or night. I love you. I've always loved you. And Grandpa loved you too. So much. Call me tomorrow after school?" "Yes, thank you, Grandma. I love you." I sat on my couch, phone in hand, photograph on the mantle, and I felt something shift inside me. Not healing, not yet. But hope. The first fragile shoots of hope pushing through scorched earth. Marcus and Jessica had made their choices. They'd chosen money over mourning, ambition over affection, inheritance over integrity. But their children, my grandchildren, they still had a chance, and as long as I was alive, I would make sure they knew what real love looked like. Not the transactional kind. Not the conditional kind. The kind that shows up at funerals. The kind that answers the phone at midnight. The kind that says, "You are worth it. You have always been worth it." And nothing, not money, not convenience, not 1,000 broken promises will ever change that. Robert had taught me that love. And now it was my turn to pass it on to the generation that needed it most. The war with Marcus and Jessica would continue. The lawyers would file their motions. The ugliness would escalate. But I had something they didn't. I had Ethan. I had Vanessa. I had Sophia reaching out across the wreckage of her parents' choices to say, "I need you." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was fighting alone. I was surrounded by people who knew that love isn't about what you can get. It's about who you are when nobody's watching and nothing's at stake except someone else's heart. Robert knew that. Ethan knew that. And I was finally learning it too. At 74 years old, I was learning to fight back. And God help anyone who stood in my way. The meeting with Elizabeth Wong and Catherine Park had drained me more than I'd expected. By the time I returned home that evening, my body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Every step up my front porch stairs was an effort. Every breath seemed to require conscious thought. I was 74 years old, and I was going to war with my own children. Inside, I made myself a simple dinner, scrambled eggs and toast, the kind of meal Robert used to make when I worked late shifts at Harborview. Depression eggs, he'd called them with a smile, because they're what you eat when you're too sad or tired to cook anything complicated. I was both sad and tired tonight. As I ate at the kitchen table, alone in the house that had once been filled with family dinners and children's laughter and Robert's terrible jokes, my phone rang. Elizabeth Wong. "Margaret, I'm sorry to call so late, but something's come up that you need to know about immediately." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "Jessica showed up at my office 20 minutes ago. She was drunk or pretending to be drunk. I couldn't quite tell, and she made a scene in my lobby. She was screaming that I'd stolen her mother from her, that I was a vulture preying on grieving widows, that she was going to report me to the Washington State Bar Association." I closed my eyes. Oh God. "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for her behavior. But Margaret, here's what concerns me. Before security escorted her out, she said something specific. She said, 'My mother isn't capable of making these decisions. She hasn't been herself since Dad died, and I'm going to prove it.' What does that mean?" "It means Jessica is likely planning to petition for guardianship. She's going to try to have you declared legally incompetent so she can take control of your finances and medical decisions." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. She can't do that. Dr. Anderson already provided documentation that I'm mentally competent. She can try. And the attempt itself, even if it fails, will be traumatic and expensive. Guardianship hearings require you to undergo psychiatric evaluation, cognitive testing, possibly even a court-ordered examination by a doctor she chooses. It's invasive and humiliating, designed to strip away your autonomy even before a judge makes a ruling. I felt bile rise in my throat. My own daughter was going to try to have me declared incompetent, was going to drag me through psychiatric evaluations like I was a child or a criminal. What do? We fight back first. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing for a restraining order against both Marcus and Jessica. We'll cite harassment, intimidation, the false police report, tonight's incident at my office. We'll ask the judge to prohibit them from contacting you directly and from filing any legal actions related to your mental capacity without substantial evidence reviewed by an independent medical examiner first. Will that work? Probably. Washington State takes elder abuse very seriously, and what they're doing qualifies. But Margaret, I need to prepare you for something. This is going to get much worse before it gets better. Jessica is desperate. Marcus is vindictive. They're going to pull out every weapon they have. After I hung up, I couldn't sit still. I paced my kitchen, then my living room, then my entire house like a caged animal. How had it come to this? How had the babies I'd nursed and raised and loved become people who would try to have me declared incompetent to steal money I'd earned? At 9:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Jessica standing there, looking nothing like the drunk woman who'd allegedly caused a scene at Elizabeth's office. She was composed, makeup perfect, wearing the cream-colored pantsuit she always wore when she wanted to look trustworthy. I didn't open the door. "Mom, I know you're in there, please. Just 5 minutes. I need to talk to you." I stayed silent, watching her through the peephole. "Mom, please. I'm sorry about what happened at the lawyer's office. I wasn't drunk, I was having a panic attack. My therapist says I'm experiencing complex trauma from the divorce and from losing Dad. I just need to explain." Still, I said nothing. Jessica's face began to change. The mask of composure cracked. "Mom, open this goddamn door right now. I'm your daughter. You owe me at least a conversation." I stepped back from the door, my heart pounding. "Fine," Jessica screamed, her voice shrill enough that I worried the neighbors would hear. "Fine. You want to play games? I have texts, Mom. I have emails. I have proof that you've been mentally declining for months. I have documentation that you forgot Emma's birthday, that you missed doctor's appointments, that you couldn't remember what day of the week it was. Every accusation was a lie. I hadn't forgotten Emma's birthday. Jessica had never told me when the party was. I hadn't missed doctor's appointments. I'd rescheduled one appointment because Robert was having a crisis at the nursing home. I'd never been confused about days of the week. But Jessica was building a narrative. She was creating a story of an incompetent old woman, and she had apparently been collecting evidence for months. "I'm going to court, Mom," Jessica continued screaming through my door. "I'm going to bring every shred of evidence I have. And when the judge sees what I have, when they understand how Ethan has manipulated you, how that vulture lawyer has taken advantage of your grief, they're going to give me guardianship. They're going to put Emmy in charge, and then we'll see who gets cut out." I stood in my dark living room, listening to my daughter threaten me, and I felt something inside me turn to ice. Not fear, not hurt, something colder and harder. Resolve. I pulled out my phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? "This is Margaret Sullivan, at 4237 Wallingford Avenue North. My daughter is outside my home screaming threats and refusing to leave. I've asked her to go, but she won't. I need police assistance." Jessica must have heard me through the door because the screaming stopped immediately. "Mom, don't you dare. Don't you call the police on your own daughter." "Ma'am, are you safe inside the residence?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes, I'm inside with the doors locked. Officers are en route. Stay on the line with me." Through the peephole, I watched Jessica's face cycle through emotions: shock, rage, calculation. Then she pulled out her phone and started recording a video. "This is what's happening," she said to her phone camera, her voice suddenly tearful and shaking. "I came to check on my elderly mother who's been acting strangely since my father died, and she's called the police on me. This is elder abuse, but nobody sees it because she's the elder. She's cutting off her own children, giving everything to one grandchild, and she's calling the police on her own daughter who's just trying to make sure she's okay." She was creating content. Evidence for her guardianship case, sympathy from social media followers. The police arrived within 6 minutes. 2 officers, one older man named Officer Davidson, one younger woman named Officer Reyes. I watched through the window as they spoke with Jessica, who was still filming everything on her phone. Jessica pointed at my house, gesturing dramatically. The officers nodded, then approached my door. I opened it before they could knock. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Officer Davidson. Can we come in and talk?" Of course. I let them in, offering seats in my living room. Officer Reyes closed her notebook and looked at me with kind but assessing eyes. "Ma'am, your daughter says she's concerned about your mental health. She says you've been acting erratically since your husband passed away. She showed us text messages where you allegedly said confusing things. May I see these text messages?" Officer Reyes showed me her phone. The texts were real messages I'd sent to Jessica over the past 6 months, but they'd been selectively edited. A text where I'd written, "I can't remember if you said Emma's party was Saturday or Sunday. Can you remind me?" had been cropped to just, "I can't remember." A text where I'd written, "Having a hard day missing Dad. Everything feels foggy," had been cropped to "Everything feels foggy." These have been manipulated. I said calmly, taken out of context to suggest confusion when I was simply asking clarification questions or expressing grief. Officer Davidson nodded slowly. Ma'am, do you know what day of the week it is? It's Thursday, October 10th, 2024. Who's the president? I told him. I answered every cognitive screening question perfectly. I showed them my medications all organized in a weekly pill organizer, all taken correctly. I showed them my calendar, every appointment neatly written in my handwriting. I showed them my checkbook balanced to the penny. Mrs. Sullivan, you seem perfectly lucid and capable to me, Officer Reyes said. Can you tell me what happened tonight? I explained everything. The changed will, the confrontation, Jessica's threats at Elizabeth's office, and now this. Officer Davidson's face grew stern. So this is about an inheritance dispute. Yes, sir. And your daughter is outside claiming you're incompetent because you changed your will to exclude her. That's correct. The officers exchanged a look. Officer Reyes spoke. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to be very honest with you. I've been a police officer for 12 years, and I've seen this exact scenario at least 24 times. Adult children trying to claim parents are incompetent when there's money involved. It's one of the ugliest things we deal with. What should I do? Get a restraining order immediately. Document everything. And ma'am, don't open your door to her again. She's building a case against you, and every interaction is being recorded and manipulated to make you look unstable. After they left, after speaking sternly to Jessica about harassment and trespassing, I sat alone in my house and realized the full scope of what Jessica had been doing. She hadn't just been a neglectful daughter. She'd been actively setting up a guardianship case for months. Every time I'd expressed grief over Robert, she'd documented it as confusion. Every time I'd asked for clarification on something, she'd framed it as memory loss. Every difficult moment of my grief had been weaponized into evidence of incompetence. My daughter had been building a cage for me, brick by brick, and I'd never seen it coming. I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Grandma? Are you okay? I saw Aunt Jessica's Instagram story she posted that you called the cops on her. I did call the police. She was screaming threats outside my house. Jesus Christ. Grandma, I'm coming over right now. No, sweetheart, it's late. I'm already in my car. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later with an overnight bag. I'm staying here tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night until this is over. You're not facing this alone. I started to cry exhausted, grateful tears. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Grandpa asked me to take care of you, and even if he hadn't, I'd still do it, because that's what family does. Real family, I thought, not the kind that takes, the kind that gives. We stayed up late, Ethan sleeping on the couch just in case Aunt Jessica comes back, while I lay in my bed upstairs, staring at the ceiling. At 1:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but you haven't. I have doctors who will testify you're incompetent. I have evidence of your declining mental state. I have character witnesses who will say you've always been manipulative and controlling. I'm going to take everything from you, Mom. Your house, your money, your freedom. And when I'm your legal guardian, the first thing I'm going to do is put you in a nursing home and sell your house. You'll die alone in some facility, just like Dad. And I'll use your money to pay for it. Sleep well. Jay. I read that text 3 times, each word sinking into my bones like poison. My daughter, my baby girl, whom I'd carried inside my body for 9 months, whom I'd nursed through midnight fevers and comforted through nightmares, and loved with every molecule of my being, had just promised to institutionalize me and steal everything I had. And she thought this would make me surrender. Instead, it made me furious. I took a screenshot of the text, sent it to Elizabeth Wong with the note, "Add this to the restraining order petition. And Elizabeth, I want to fight with everything I have. No mercy, no compromise." She declared war. Let's show her what losing looks like. Then I did something I'd never done in my entire life. I poured myself 3 fingers of Robert's good scotch, the bottle he'd saved for special occasions that never came, and I drank it in one long, burning swallow. Tomorrow, Jessica would learn that threatening a 74-year-old widow was the biggest mistake of her life. Tomorrow, I would stop being the accommodating mother who absorbed abuse to keep the peace. Tomorrow, I would become something my daughter had never seen before. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. I finished the scotch, turned off my phone, and went to sleep with a smile on my face. Because Jessica had just handed me the evidence I needed to destroy her case before she could even file it. And she was too blinded by greed to realize it. Game on, sweetheart. Game on. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October clarity that makes Seattle look like a postcard. The sky was impossibly blue. The air smelled of fallen leaves and Puget Sound salt water, and Mount Rainier stood visible in the distance like a benevolent guardian watching over the city. It was a beautiful day to go to war. Elizabeth Wong had moved faster than I'd thought possible. By 8:30 a.m., we were standing in King County Superior Court, filing for an emergency restraining order against both Marcus and Jessica. The courthouse was downtown, an imposing building of concrete and glass that smelled like floor polish and institutional coffee. Ethan had driven me, refusing to let me go alone. He sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, studying for his biochemistry midterm but looking up every few minutes to make sure I was still there, still safe. "You don't have to stay," I'd told him in the car. "You have class." "Grandma, my class is recorded. I can watch it later, but I can't watch a recording of making sure you're okay, priorities." Now, sitting in the courtroom waiting for our case to be called, I felt my hands trembling. Not from fear exactly, but from the surreal wrongness of it all. I was in court seeking protection from my own children, the children I'd brought into this world, the children whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, and whose tears I'd dried, and whose dreams I'd nurtured. How had we arrived here? "Sullivan v. Sullivan and Sullivan Thompson," the bailiff called. Elizabeth stood, and I followed her to the table on the left side of the courtroom. The respondents' table where Marcus and Jessica should have been sitting was empty. They hadn't been formally served yet. This was an ex parte hearing, meaning the judge would hear only our side first to determine if immediate protection was warranted. Judge Patricia Ochoa presided, a woman in her late 50s with silver-streaked black hair and the kind of face that suggested she'd heard every story and believed none of the excuses. Elizabeth had told me Judge Ochoa was known for being fair but formidable, with a particular intolerance for family members who exploited elderly relatives. "Miss Wong, you're petitioning for emergency restraining orders against Judge Ochoa," looked at her papers, then back at me with something that might have been sympathy, the petitioner's son and daughter. "That's unusual. Please proceed." Elizabeth stood, and for the next 20 minutes, she presented our case with surgical precision. She showed the text messages, played the audio recording Ethan had made of Marcus's confrontation, presented the police report from Jessica's harassment outside my home, and displayed the threatening text Jessica had sent at 1:15 a.m. "Your Honor," Elizabeth concluded, "Mrs. Sullivan is a 74-year-old widow who buried her husband 12 days ago. Instead of supporting her through grief, her children have launched a campaign of harassment, intimidation, and threatened legal action designed to coerce her into changing her legal will to benefit them financially. The respondent, Jessica Sullivan Thompson, has explicitly threatened to have Mrs. Sullivan declared incompetent and institutionalized. This rises to the level of elder abuse and financial exploitation." Judge Ochoa had been reading through the documents as Elizabeth spoke. Now she looked up at me directly. "Mrs. Sullivan, can you tell me in your own words what's been happening?" I stood slowly, my knees protesting. "Your Honor, my husband Robert died of Alzheimer's disease on September 26th. He was 76 years old. We'd been married for 52 years. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. His funeral was on October 2nd. I was the only family member who attended. My son Marcus missed it for a work presentation. My daughter Jessica missed it for a nail appointment and legal mediation." Judge Ochoa's eyebrows rose slightly. "Your children didn't attend their father's funeral?" "No, ma'am. And when I changed my will to reflect that my grandson Ethan, who did care enough to visit his dying grandfather, should inherit instead of them, they became hostile." "Hostile is putting it mildly, Mrs. Sullivan." Judge Ochoa held up Jessica's threatening text. "Your daughter threatened to institutionalize you and take everything. She's building a guardianship case to have you declared incompetent. How do you respond to her concerns about your mental capacity?" "I'd like to respond, Your Honor." Dr. Patricia Anderson stood from the gallery. Elizabeth had asked her to attend as a witness. "And you are?" "Dr. Patricia Anderson. I've been Mrs. Sullivan's primary care physician for 12 years. I've conducted comprehensive cognitive assessments on her annually as part of her Medicare wellness exams. Her most recent assessment was 3 weeks ago after her husband's death. She scored perfectly on all cognitive function tests. Her Montreal Cognitive Assessment score was 28 out of 30, which is well above the threshold for dementia screening. She manages complex medical decisions, handles her own finances, lives independently, and shows no signs whatsoever of diminished capacity. Then why would her daughter claim otherwise? Because Mrs. Sullivan changed her will, Your Honor, and there are approximately $2 million at stake. The judge's expression hardened. I see. She looked back at me. Mrs. Sullivan, do you want a restraining order against your own children? The question hung in the air. This was the moment. The point of no return. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Why? Because they're not acting like my children anymore. They're acting like... I struggle to find the right word. Like strangers who want something from me. And I'm afraid of what they'll do to get it. Judge Ochoa was quiet for a long moment, reviewing documents. Then she spoke. I'm granting a temporary restraining order against both respondents, effective immediately and valid for 14 days, at which time we'll have a full hearing with both parties present. During this period, Marcus Sullivan and Jessica Sullivan Thompson are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Sullivan directly or indirectly, from coming within 500 feet of her residence, and from filing any legal actions regarding her mental competency or financial affairs without this court's express permission and independent medical review. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I had to grip the table to stay upright. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering both respondents to undergo evaluation by a court-appointed family mediator before the next hearing. If they're truly concerned about their mother's welfare and not just her money, they'll cooperate fully. Miss Wong, prepare the order and have it served today. Yes, Your Honor. As we left the courtroom, Ethan jumped up from his seat. Well, we won, I said, and then my knees did buckle. Ethan caught me, and Elizabeth grabbed a chair. Grandma, sit down. You're pale. I sat, my heart racing. I just got a restraining order against my own children. You got protection from people who were harassing you, Elizabeth corrected gently. There's a difference. Dr. Anderson, who'd followed us out, knelt beside my chair. Margaret, your blood pressure is probably through the roof right now. When was the last time you ate? I don't remember. Yesterday? Ethan, there's a cafe downstairs. Get your grandmother some food. Now. While Ethan ran to get food, Dr. Esway, dunastovlee.com, Anderson checked my pulse, looked at my eyes, asked me questions in the calm, competent voice I'd heard her use with hundreds of patients over the years. You're in shock, she said finally. Not medical shock, but emotional shock. Your body has been running on adrenaline for almost 2 weeks, and now that you've taken action, the adrenaline is wearing off and you're crashing. You need food, water, and rest. Probably in that order. Ethan returned with a turkey sandwich, apple juice, and a chocolate chip cookie. They didn't have much, but the lady at the cafe said the sandwich was fresh. I ate mechanically, barely tasting anything, while Elizabeth made phone calls to arrange service of the restraining order. She'd hired a professional process server who would deliver the documents to both Marcus's office at Amazon and Jessica's apartment within the next 2 hours. They're going to lose their minds, I said quietly. Let them, Elizabeth replied. They're restrained by court order from contacting you. If they violate it, they'll be arrested. You're safe now, Margaret. But I didn't feel safe. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, ancient. We left the courthouse at 11:30. Ethan drove me home, helped me inside, and insisted I lie down while he made tea. I was lying on the couch, Robert's couch, where he'd watched the evening news every night for decades when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but Elizabeth had told me to document any attempts at contact. Hello? Mrs. Sullivan? This is Brad Morrison. I'm Jessica's attorney. The divorce lawyer. The one she'd been drinking champagne with. Mr. Morrison, there's a restraining order. I'm aware. I'm not calling on Jessica's behalf. I'm calling on my own behalf to inform you that I'm withdrawing from her divorce case, effective immediately. I sat up. What?